You're listening to The Pete Sheppard Show.
Texas is in a double bonus from this point forward. He misses the second, and Xavier's got it. Texas trying to get to him. 2 seconds. And there's the knockout punch. And the Xavier Musketeers scraping their way to a Friday night first round date with Illinois.
True TV. Hope you found it last night. What a game. Xavier rallying. Biggest deficit of the year. The madness has begun. Musketeers winning. Pride in the Big East. Beating those SEC fools. Gotta love it. The madness is here. The madness is here. 2 of my favorite days of the year coming up. The first round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Let's get it going. And unlike ESPN this morning, my lead will not be the stupid Detroit Pistons winning at the buzzer against, against Miami, nor will it be the stupid Lakers beating the Denver Nuggets without Murray and Jokic in the lineup. It is all about March Madness today and the National Football League. Those are going to be 2 of the big topics today. Anything else is sort of secondary out there and really a waste of your time. No one's sitting around the water cooler today going, man, those Pistons, how did they do it? Wow, the Lakers won by 12. How did they do it without Jokic and Murray in the lineup for Denver? Don't care. Don't care about it. Don't care. Good morning. It is the Pete Sheppard Show here on the Coastal Sports Network. Thanks for checking us out across the video platform. Following me on PShep326 on Twitter, on X, on Facebook pages, on the Coastal Sports Network Facebook page, on my Facebook page, CSN Florida, Rumble, Kick, YouTube, LinkedIn. Call or text the show, 727-858-6650. And, of course, our awesome app right there, SR1029 The Game, SR1029TheGame.com. Lots going on in the world of college basketball. Definitely some controversy still lingering, and it got worse yesterday as the new head coach of the Indiana Pacers, Darian DeVries, boy, Roy, he talked about letting the cat out of the bag. We'll get into that in a second. There's stuff going on in Providence, and I don't mean the 4 games that are going to take place over there starting today. Some really good action taking place over there. But Bryce Hopkins is transferring, and it seems to be to either St. John's or Georgetown, and everybody is up in arms, some over that. And there are coaches that are playing in this regional in Providence that may have some serious influence on where he ends up. We'll get to all of that as well. Huge show lined up for you today, 8:05 this morning. Trevor Harris will join us from WQAM in Miami for his weekly visit. 8:30, Bill Sparrows from the Boston Herald and Bookies.com at 9:05. Mick Calagio will talk some NHL with Mick. And then Mia O'Brien at 9:30 a.m. We will get into, we'll discuss the NFL. We'll also discuss college basketball with Mia, and she covers the Florida Gators. I have the Gators winning the whole thing. Again, I will give you my final 4. It's Florida, Auburn, Duke, and Tennessee. I did put them in. I did. It is such a gamble. I'm telling you. I hope on Monday when we come back, Angel, that I'm not sitting here going, oh, no, I did it again. Knowing Barnes' record of, 30 and 28 in the postseason, including 11 first-round knockouts. I'm taking a risk. I really am taking a risk with the Vols. Good morning to Angel Martinez up in Tampa. Glorious start to today. It's been absolutely wonderful weather down here in Southwest Florida. And we say good morning to Angel. How are you, my friend?
Good morning, Pete. I'm doing pretty good. As yes, March Madness is here. It seems like ESPN cannot get off either the Lakers schneid or something else. So that seems to be their top priority stories. And as who had mentioned it, Kevin last week about Stephen A. Smith Seems like all they want to do is just put him everywhere.
Well, they got no choice because he's making $20 million a year. So you got to stick him. He's going to be on Monday Night Countdown coming up. Yeah, I don't even just wasting my time. Meanwhile, if you're up in the Boston area, you got people like Michael Felger on 98.5 The Sports Hub bitching and moaning that his little show at night, NBC Sports Boston, got delayed because the Celtics post-game show went late. And he hates the Celtics anyway because he's from Wisconsin, and he doesn't like all the what he calls grab bashing that goes on because they've been doing, obviously one of the best teams in the league. But Felger, who's been cut back from 5 days to 3 on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and getting paid still a very good amount of money, but he's pissed because he has to hang around for 45 minutes to an hour after a Celtics game on NBC Sports. Please, Mike, stop it. I mean, I do love you, and I love Maz too, but you sometimes it's not sometimes, get over the fuck of yourself, okay? You're getting paid a lot of money. I don't care if you have to hang around till 4 o'clock in the morning. That's what you do. That's what you do. It's happened to all of us before in this business. We've all had shows delayed by post-game shows, whether on the radio and TV. It's happened to me many times. It's happened to Glenn Ordway, who's on this show. It happens to everybody. And the fact that you're sitting there bitching and moaning about it to your audience, I have to wait around an hour. And I'm tired of hearing, Scalabrine talk about how great the players are and all that. Too bad. Too bad. You don't like it? Move. Move. Plenty of people that can sit there and not complain having to wait an hour. Anyway, enough about that. But I just know that I have my contingency people in New England have to listen to that nonsense. And, while some people are digging ditches and, working hard for a living, you're complaining you might have to hang around for an hour after because the Celtics postgame show ran long. Now, that's really, really too bad. It really, really is. Anyway, welcome to the Pete Sheppard Show. Angel, you have not filled out a bracket yet. You have not filled out a bracket.
No.
I have Florida beating Duke in my final. You haven't done a bracket yet.
Not yet. I'll get to it today. Amongst the other stuff, but I'll get to it today. But wait, who do you have? Duke against who?
I have Florida beating Duke in the final. I have Florida, Auburn, Duke, and Tennessee as my final four. Looking at my bracket before we get into some of the stuff that's going on with Xavier and West Virginia and Indiana. Looking at my bracket today, I went over this. I'm not going to go over every pick, but if you're looking at, action starts today. The first games this afternoon. Let me just get Creighton, Louisville will tap things off at 12:15. Creighton and Louisville, which I have Creighton as a plus 2.5, and I would suggest you shekel people get on the Blue Jays right now. They're going to win. Creighton's going to beat Louisville. Should be a hell of a game, but I like the plus 2.5 there. That game gets underway at 12:15. That'll be played in Lexington, Kentucky. And then right after that at 12:42, first game up in Providence, Rhode Island, High Point against Purdue. That's a 13-4 game. The Creighton-Louisville game's an 8-9 game. So a lot of people, it's like always a flip of a coin. But look, I've seen both teams play a lot. And part of me might be, I just think McDermott is one of the best coaches in the country. Creighton is going to be tough. I think they win the game outright. But I'll take the 2.5-point lead on Louisville. You have to always say, we always say it. You got to sound, when you say Louisville, you got to sound constipated. Purdue and High Point in Providence. That is a Midwest region game in Providence. And again, these regions, it doesn't really matter anymore because the regions don't line up with the cities, that the actual region that they're physically playing in. Doesn't matter. Purdue and High Point and a 4-13 seed. That's at 12:40 on True TV. The Creighton Louisville game's on CBS, by the way. Purdue is an 8-point favorite right out of the gate in this one. 4-13 seed. Now, remember, 2 years ago, what happened to Purdue? They lost to Fairleigh Dickinson as a 1 seed. That was the second time a 1 beat a 16. We remember what UMBC, Maryland, Baltimore County did to Virginia a couple years before that. So it's happened twice, a 16 beating a 1. This is a 13-4 game. Now, Purdue, the next year after they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson last year, went on to the Final Four before losing to UConn. But this could be an interesting game. High Point and Purdue. That's at 12:40. There's your first two games right out of the gate. Then at 1:30, we head out to Denver for the Wisconsin Badgers. I know we have a lot of Wisconsin people, Big Ten people listening to this show. Wisconsin takes on Montana in a very interesting game. They're 16.5-point favorites. And what's interesting, we all remember back in the day, Wisconsin, if they scored 50 points, 55 points, you were lucky. Well, now they're one of the highest scoring teams in the country. They put up 80 a game. So, but Montana, as a 14 seed, they won a bunch of games in a row. The 16.5 seems a lot to me. I ain't touching that one. I ain't touching that. The total is 153. The other one at 2 o'clock, and this will take place in Wichita. It is a Midwest region game. Number 1 seed, Houston, over SIUE. And if you're wondering what SIUE is, I'll tell you their nickname, the SIUE Cougars. The Southern, in fact, SIUE. The Cougars of SIUE will take on the Cougars of Houston. So how about that? We have Cougar on Cougar crime. Really do. But this is the biggest spread of the tournament in the first round that I've seen. 28.5. Houston is favored by over SIUE. So go with the Cougars. Get that? Go with the Cougars. You can't lose if you go with the Cougars.
Sure can't.
You can't just pick the right side. I'd go with Houston. I would go with Houston there. But I do have them losing in the second round. I do. That's why I'm one upset special. Then later on today, as we continue, Auburn takes on Alabama. That's also in the South region. And that is the number 1 seed. That's going to be taking place in the South region. In Lexington, Kentucky. So I have Auburn in my Final Four. They've been one of the best teams all year. Coach Pearl, they haven't played well lately. 3 out of 4 they've lost. But anyway, we'll see. I think they're going to be tough, and I think they make it to the Final Four. And then at 3:15, also in Providence, we have Clemson. So after Purdue and High Point, you're going to have Clemson take on McNeese in a very interesting matchup. That 5-12 matchup that people just sometimes in this tournament, in men's, they just pick the 12 seed all the time because the 12 seeds had a lot of success over the last 20 years of upsetting the 5. The 11-6 is getting up there as well. I have Clemson winning this game, but, look, I don't think there's any right or wrong brackets in this. And you would get your office pool in, whether it's $10, $20, $25, $100, whatever it is. Make sure you get it in. For tip-off is at 12:15. I know a lot of people have to give it to their respective bosses. I have turned the bracket into myself since I am right now, because Peanut Gallery hasn't filled one out yet as far as I know. So officially, I've already won my tournament pool. I'm giving myself the $1 million prize. So I win because I am. Angel doesn't have a bracket. Peanut Gallery doesn't have a bracket. I'm the only one who has a bracket. So I win. But I'll play it out. Let's see if I can beat myself. Coming up at 4 o'clock, it's VCU and BYU, also on TNT. That is in the East region, but that's at the Ball Center in the Ball Arena, I should say, in Denver, Colorado. Love the East region in Denver. BYU gets to go down the street and play as a 6 seed, which has also been very controversial as well, of how those guys, as a 6 seed, get a pretty good break of going down. Now, we saw last night in Dayton, we saw the Xavier Musketeers come from behind, down with 13 or 14 points, come back and beat Texas out of the SEC. And as we talked to Mike Petralia on Tuesday, Xavier's campus only an hour from Dayton, so it's all Musketeer fans, basically, in that arena last night. But that was fine. I thought Xavier would win. I think they're going to be dangerous. I think they're going to beat Illinois and move on. Also at 4:35 today, my little upset favorite for this tournament is Gonzaga. The Zags will play in Wichita, the 8-9 game against Georgia. I think Georgia is extremely overrated. They've had a couple of nice wins this year. I'm not taking anything away, but they're one of those SEC teams. There was not enough talk about them being, when you're a 9th or a 10th seed, you're like one of the last teams to get in, and they were. But I think Gonzaga is going to beat them today. The total is 150.5 and 6.5 for Gonzaga. They are favored by 6.5. The only game I like out of the gate so far is I love Creighton today plus 2.5. So we go on to tonight, and there's not a lot of downtime. We used to have some downtime in between the games, but now because everything is spread out and regions really don't matter, times don't matter either. We got 4 networks. So I mean, the Georgia Gonzaga game is at 4:35. Remember, Angel? Then we used to have to wait to there'd be like a couple hour gap in between. Now there's only going to be like 20 minutes because the next game is at 6:50. But when you factor in that Georgia Gonzaga, that's if they even start on time. You got to figure at least 2 hours, and that game's going to probably ends at sometime around 6:45 Eastern time. And then right after that, you got Wofford and Tennessee, a 15-2 matchup. I'm so scared. Wofford's going to beat them. I'm so scared. This is exactly the type of game that Tennessee might lose. They're up favored by 19. Please don't wreck my bracket on the first day. Please. I still can't believe it. Why don't you talk some sense into me? What the hell's wrong with you?
I don't know.
I told you the last 2 years we've known each other. Don't ever bet on Tennessee. Never, never, never. So what do? I put him in the Final Four. I blame you.
All right. I blame our comedian friend.
But Tennessee plays Wofford. That is going to be also that's in Lexington as well. Yeah, that's in Lexington as well. Tennessee, a 19-point favorite over Wofford. Wofford's been playing so good, but again, Rick Barnes, the numbers are frightening when you factor in the amount of talent that he has had in the past. Started with Providence, with Clemson, with Texas, and now Tennessee. And his record is just like I said. Let me punch it up officially. Rick Barnes is 30-28 all time, as I said, as a head coach in the NCAA tournament. And out of those 28 losses, Angel, 11 of them have come in the first round. That is frightening.
It is frightening.
That is scary. I'm scared. Like Rocky 3. I'm afraid, okay? For the first time in my life, I'm afraid.
By the way, good morning, Gas Pump Guy. It's been a minute.
Hey, good morning, Gas Pump Guy. Yeah, sorry I had to show up yesterday. My tummy was a little out of whack. And by the way, I want to get this off my chest, too, before, as far as North Carolina goes. No one was ever going to say that North Carolina couldn't beat San Diego State, okay? That's not the story. The story is that they got in. I'm not surprised that I told you. I mean, them beating it to San Diego State, okay, good for them. They clobbered them. Good for them. And then they, quote-unquote, shut everybody. It's not that they couldn't beat San Diego State or another one. First of all, you're an 11 seed in a playing game. You got Mississippi State coming up, and I wouldn't be shocked that they win that too, although I picked Mississippi State sort of reluctantly. I told you, teams like this get in. Syracuse did it. VCU has done it. Other teams have done it. You get in this controversial teams get in, and all of a sudden they end up winning 2 games and they're in the Sweet 16. That's not the point. The point is that West Virginia got screwed, but then West Virginia screwed themselves, and DeVries, and that's the only thing that sucked about not being on yesterday. After we got off the air on Tuesday, DeVries signs on with Indiana, and it's taking his son with them. We find out it seems to be that's the reason why that he didn't play since December, because this was a side deal that was made. It was already done. We'll hear from Coach DeVries in a second. He basically admits it. That this was all right. So Tennessee Wofford, I'm scared out of my mind in this one. That's at 6:50 on TNT. Also at 7:10. Right after that, Kansas and Arkansas. That's in Providence, and that should be one hell of a game. I think that's going to be a very, very high scoring game. Kansas and Arkansas. That's another one I like. There's a side I like and a total that I like. I love the Creighton Blue Jays early on today, plus 2.5. And I love Arkansas and Kansas to go over. Bill Self versus John Calipari. That's going to be a very good matchup. I think a fun, high-scoring game for those of you in the nighttime action in Providence. So over 145.5. That's my play there. Then we got the Ivy League, and this is one of my upsets. The 13-4 seed, the 7:25 on TBS. This will be in Denver, Colorado. This will be Yale at plus 7.5 over Texas A&M. That's a 13-4. That's my one big upset I have in the first round. I have the Bulldogs out of the Ivy League, studying the mighty SEC again, as they did last night to Texas, knocking them out. I think Texas A&M will get upset tonight by Yale. Certainly love the 7.5. Not as much as I love the other two that I just told you about, the total in the Kansas game and Kansas and Arkansas, and Creighton plus 2.5. But not a bad teaser play here, especially like a 4-team teaser. You get somewhere in between 6 and 8 points, depending on what site you're betting on. 7:30 tonight, also on True TV, Missouri. This is also going to be in Wichita. Missouri and Drake go at it. This should be another interesting game. Drake, the 11th seed, Missouri, the 6th seed. Watch out for upset city there. Another SEC team could go down. Then we get to later on tonight, your bailout games, so to speak, coming up at Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky. UCLA with Mick Cronin. We'll see if he stays. There's a lot of rumors that he's headed to Villanova, but we'll see how focused they are. They are a 5.5-point favorite against the Aggies of Utah State, and I have Utah State winning this one. That's a 10-7 matchup. Not a big fan of the way the Bruins have played this year. The women, on the other hand, are excellent. St. John's in Providence, the nightcap against Omaha. It's my Peyton Manning. Omaha. So St. John's, an 18.5-point favorite over Omaha in Providence. That should be huge. And also tonight at 10 o'clock. Is that tonight? Yes. Also tonight at 10 o'clock. Michigan out in Denver. And our friend Dusty Mann, I know that our buddy Jay Flanley is going to have to stay up late to watch this one. Allegedly, it's going to start at 10 o'clock, but who knows? It could be later. Michigan will host University of California, San Diego. The Wolverines are minus 2.5. I do like them tonight. That's another one. That's 3 that I like. I like laying the 2.5 with against Cal San Diego. I do think it'll be a competitive game, and that's a game I think Michigan wins somewhere between 5 to 10 points. And it'll be late. It'll be a late cover. You're probably sitting there going, "Why did I listen to them?" I think they get it done. So I think they get it done. And then you have the latest game at 10:10 is the 3-14 seed with Texas Tech against University of North Carolina, Wilmington. Texas Tech 25-8, Wilmington 27-7. 14.5-point favorite. The Red Raiders are in that one, and that is also at Wichita. I remember, Angel, back in the day when we'd have games, the last game would be at midnight. Remember?
Yeah.
You'd start at 12 or 12:15. I remember a couple times there were Rick Barnes teams playing in those games, particularly one year against Ohio State. That might have been Pete Gillen. But that was a 12-15 game that PC lost by a couple. But yeah, we used to have the midnight games. It used to be midnight. See, the regions used to be different then. Like where you played, if you got sent out west, you had a west start. You had West Coast starting time. Now it's not that way anymore. All the regions are spread out. Nobody can keep track of everything. But anyway, so my as far as shekels go, 3 games that I like. To recap, I like Creighton plus 2.5 over Louisville today. The other game that I like, the other 2 games that I like are Arkansas and Kansas over 145.5. I think that's going to be a very high-scoring game. Arkansas and Kansas over 145.5. And to cap it off, I like Michigan minus 2.5 tonight over UC San Diego. So there you have it. All right, Angel, let's get to some video here because we got a huge show lined up for you today. 4 guests. Angel's only going to be with us till 8 o'clock, which is fine. He's got things to do, people to see. And so let's go right away. Let's go scroll right under actually a few down, under Ben Booth. Darian DeVries basically openly admitting yesterday at his introductory press conference in Indiana that this was done during the season, meaning his son. And the deal was done during the season for him. And probably the reason why his son didn't play is because the deal was done. He was heading into Indiana, probably knew it in December or early January, and that's why his son didn't play. Here's Coach DeVries yesterday.
Yeah, and obviously the process, is the process on how it plays out. And, as you're going through their season, they were, very respectful of making sure that my focus continued to be on our team and certainly appreciated that. Yeah, and obviously the process.
That was quick.
You appreciated that. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people appreciate it. I'm sure the people of West Virginia. Now, maybe the governor, maybe the governor will sue him, for breach of contract. Morrissey. Governor Patrick Morrisey, the West Virginia governor, who that's kind of died down. This little, and he's going to sue the committee for not having. What about suing you? Hey, look, this shit happens. It's corrupt. Let's call it what. Not corrupt. There's no repercussions. There are no parameters anymore. So coaches leave whenever they want. Players leave whenever they want. You throw in a little nepotism, like it is here, and man, oh man, it just doesn't. It leaves a rotten taste in your mouth, doesn't it? It really does.
It sure does.
A bad tomato. Ever had a bad tomato? Especially the small ones. You bite into and it's all mush. You're like, sucks. It's the worst texture ever. I relate everything to food. All right. Let me see. I'm going to play some audio here as well from March Madness. But I will say this before I get into some of the stuff. There's stuff going on in Providence with Bryce Hopkins. And you got to remember, Bryce Hopkins was going to be one of the best players in the country. He was hurt. He hasn't played for Providence. He played 15. If in 15 months, he played about 4 games, maybe 3.5 games. It sucks. He made $1 million in nil money last year, sat on the bench, and him and his dad sitting on the bench, faking that. Well, I don't know if they were faking, but certainly playing it out like a well-acted drama that he couldn't play. Meanwhile, all the time, now it's coming to fruition, it seems, in the back of his head that he was going to transfer to St. John's or Georgetown, which is rumored to be what it's going to be now. What is also interesting on a couple of fronts. First of all, St. John's head coach Rick Pitino, we'll hear from him in a second. He's in Providence this weekend. So you have that. Ed Cooley's in Georgetown. The former coach of Providence, who got him there from Kentucky at the time when Bryce transferred. And now Angela goes all the way back. And guess who's playing in Providence today also is John Calipari in Arkansas. He recruited Bryce Hopkins originally. So it's all coming full circle. They got Calipari, Bryce Hopkins, Pitino, Ed Cooley. It's unbelievable. They talk about the circle of life, but man, it is interesting. And people are thinking that maybe John Calipari, Jedi mind's trick, Bryce Hopkins and his dad to go to the Razorbacks. So my guess is he's going to end up at St. John's as 1, Georgetown number 2, and Calipari with Arkansas number 3. But the whole thing is, you got 2 of the 3 scenarios going on in Providence today with both St. John's and Arkansas playing, and I think both are going to win, and both coaches who don't like each other are going to play on Saturday, more than likely. But speaking of Rick Pitino, he talks about his respect for Jim Calhoun. Hang on a sec. Yeah, he's talked about his respect for Jim Calhoun. Remember when at the time Rick was at BU, Cal was at Northeastern, and they hated each other then.
There's only one coach I really considered a rival in my whole career, and I've been blessed to coach against. I coached against Frank McGuire's last game, coach against Dean Smith. There's only one coach I had a strong rivalry with, and today I respect him as much as anybody in the game, and that was Jim Calhoun. We hated each other, BU and Northeastern hated each other, and there were 300 people at each arena. He goes on to coach in Connecticut, I go on to coach in Providence, and we hated each other there as well. And today I don't think I respect any coach in the game as much as I respect Jim Calhoun. So looking back on it, it was really funny at that stage of BU versus Northeastern.
Thanks, Coach. Going all the way back.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't think of it. Those of you around the country or here in Florida and stuff, I mean, that was a huge thing. It was always a BU and Northeastern out of that conference that, went to the NCAA tournament. And obviously, it was a smaller conference back then. When you think how Patrick Ewing came very close, by the way, of going to BU. That was one of the schools he visited. Visited Boston College. He visited BU. Obviously, he visited Georgetown. And I think Kentucky. But, I mean, can you imagine a force like Patrick Ewing almost ending up at Boston University? It was close at the time. But he ended up going to Georgetown. The rest is history. Here's Shaka Smart discussing the quick turnaround ahead of their matchup against New Mexico. Speaking of Rick Pitino, Richard Pitino will be coaching New Mexico. Here's Shaka Smart, though, head coach of Marquette.
You really don't get much sleep this time of year either way. So it doesn't matter if it's, you're playing at home or you're playing in a conference tournament. It's just kind of, you're going on adrenaline. But it's more just being excited than anything, for the opportunity. So, yeah, for us, we played Friday night in the Garden, lost to St. John's, flew back Saturday. Sunday is always, if we're fortunate to make the tournament, a celebration of that fact, just because I think it's about 18% of Division I teams make it, so we never want to take that for granted. But now we certainly want to do something with the opportunity.
In terms of New Mexico, with what you've only had hours, as we said, to go through some stuff, what is your initial blush of looking at this team?
I think Richard's done a terrific job, as always. He's a heck of a coach. I guess we can't get away from Patino's because we played St. John's 2 out of our last 3 games. Now we're on to New Mexico, but it's typical of this time of year. It's kind of like deja vu. I mean, you run into teams that are older, that are tough, that are experienced, that have, understand what goes into winning. Obviously, for them, everything starts with Donovan Dent. He's one of the best guards in the country. But I've been impressed with their other personnel as well. They've got really good size, a lot more size than us in their starting lineup. They've got a 5-man in Joseph that is really, really active and plays with incredible multiple efforts and, will be all over the floor for them defensively. So for us, that's going to be a big key is doing our best to counteract that.
Shaka Smart. It is so funny. This is how, it is. This may come off as sounding pretentious, and I don't mean it to come off that way. I remember the Patinos were members of the same club that my family was a member of for many, many years. In fact, at the end, my parents were still the oldest members. So when Rick and Joanne, his wife, when they came to Providence, they joined the same club. So I remember, I've told the story before about me playing golf with Rick one day, just coincidence. Me, him, and another friend of ours just happened to be on the same tee. I walk up on a Sunday at like 4:00 and no one's there, and Rick's there. And this was right when he was leaving. The Knicks were recruiting him. He sat there for 4 hours and stood there and told me, this was about 1.5 years before I got in the radio, tell me that, he wasn't taking the Knick job, that he was staying with Providence, blah, blah, blah. So, I learned a very good lesson right there and then after, because he took the job with the Knicks like 3 days later. But I still remember on Easter, and remember his son, Daniel, had passed away during the Big East tournament that year in '87. This is the year when they went to the Final Four. That was a big thing. He coached, and when they came back from Madison Square Garden after they lost to Georgetown in the Big East semis, it was a big thing. And after the Big East tournament, after the NCAA tournament, and the Final Four was over in New Orleans, we're all back at Quinnesset Country Club in North Kingstown, Rhode Island, where we're members, and we had Easter dinner. Basically, we all had it together. They were on one side of we're all within 15 feet of each other. The point of the story is, I just remember Joanne, his wife, because Richard was I don't know, 2, 3 years old maybe at the time. And Angel, I remember Mrs. Patino, Joanne, saying, "Richard, sit up. That's all I remember, back then. And it was a difficult time for them, having their, a young infant son pass. But, she was always in good spirits. She and my mom, God rest my mom's soul, they were pretty tight for about 1.5 years. Got to know them well. Obviously, Rick ended up knowing who I was. After, when he got to the Celtics, it was really funny because even though he treated Red and everybody like shit, but he remembered me. I didn't have a lot of kind words for him. From a professional standpoint, how he ran the Celtics organization, it didn't last that long. It was an absolute disaster. But nevertheless, that's my Patino story. Basically, Joanne telling Richard, sit up at Easter Sunday dinner. I'll never forget it. All right, when we come back, NFL, we're going to get into it. Aaron Rodgers has got nowhere else to go. Don't you do that to me, sir. Don't you do that. That's my officer and a gentleman. Aaron Rodgers may have nowhere else to go. We'll tell you why and what his options are limited now to a couple of teams. And I'm not sure anybody wants them. We'll get to that. And the Detroit Lions want a whole bunch of rules changed or amended. All part of the Pete Sheppard Show here until 10 this morning on the Coastal Sports Network.
Hi folks, this is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey everybody, it's Pete Sheppard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you. You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Don't spaz out because your team lost. Let Pete do it for you. Now, back to the Pete Sheppard Show.
A lot of people are very familiar with Tennessee and Chaz Lanier, and I think Zakai Ziegler's a great player in his own right. Their whole team is, and so for us, what's been our motto all year is we just have to play. We have to be who we are, and you got to let the chips fall where they may when you do that. And over the course of the season, there's games where obviously we felt like we put our best foot forward and the ball just didn't bounce our way. And, the way game of the basketball works, sometimes you don't play great and you still find a way to win.
No! That is Wofford head coach Dwight Perry. They're going to be dead. I'm going to get screwed. I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it in my bones. I want to be sitting there sweating it out when Wofford plays Tennessee tonight, because I am dumb enough to put Tennessee in the Final Four, and I am going to be sweating that out. Let's finish that up from head coach Dwight Perry here.
I don't think that would be the recipe for success against the Volunteers. We're definitely going to have to play great, and some things are going to have to, go our way. But that's the great part about this time of year is, your guys get the opportunity on this stage, right, in that environment, right, in the Rupp Arena, great environment, Big Blue Nation, obviously, while not, there for a traditional game. Obviously the city of Lexington really cares about sports and basketball in particular. Big reason why that's such a great venue to host NCAA tournament games. So we're excited about the opportunity to be playing, in that atmosphere, in that environment against a great program like Tennessee.
Don't wreck my bracket. It's a 15-2 seed. Look, I remember the first time it happened. I brought this up the other day. I remember Richmond beating an unbelievable Syracuse team, a horrible, one of the worst losses ever by Boeheim in a 15-2 matchup. That was the first time. I think that was like 1990 or 91 that happened. Look, we've seen two 16s beat a 1. We've seen a couple of 15s beat 2s. And it's only because it's Rick Barnes. You have to, if you're a Tennessee Volunteer fan, you have got to be doing poopy pants tonight. You have to be. Because of the 30-28 record that he has, he's had some unbelievable teams from Providence, Clemson, Texas, and Tennessee. A lot of first-round draft picks on those teams. 30-28 overall, and 11 of those 28 losses have come in the first round. I and other people who have Volunteers going, far in this tournament. I'm telling you, Angel, with 5 minutes to go, I'll bet you this game was within 5 points. Either way, I wouldn't be shocked, because it's what Tennessee does. They make people like me do stupid things and pick them in the Final Four. I've been very good and disciplined. I really have. Much like I'm sure you would, as you were defending our country, in the Army back in the day, I put myself in the same spot defending my turf here. I'm kidding, of course. Tennessee Volunteers. I have done the right thing over the last 10 years. I knocked them out all the time by the second round. I may have won a couple of first-round games, but I never put them past the second round. But I have become an undisciplined idiot, and I put them in the Final Four. And I'm not going to go back and edit and stuff and do all that. I do one bracket and one bracket only. I'm not one of these idiots, not idiots, but these people that have so much time on your hand that you fill out 50 brackets, 100 brackets, because you think you're going to win the $1 million prize on ESPN or CBS Sports Lines pool. I have one bracket, and we'll see how it goes. I think I have a pretty good Final Four for me with Auburn, Florida, Duke, and Tennessee. I picked them. And I'm telling you, I feel it in my bones tonight, Angel, that around 9 o'clock tonight, I'll be pooping my pants, praying. Forget the cover. I wouldn't touch that game. If I had to, I'd probably take the 19 points with Wofford. But I'm telling you, I and other volunteer fans will be sweating it out at 9 o'clock tonight. That, oh my God, he did it again. You can't possibly not have trepidation if you are a Tennessee Volunteer fan going into this tournament. 30-28, 11 of the 28 losses in the first round. Please don't do it to me again. All right. Let's get to the NFL. Let's get to the NFL before I have a conniption and have a nervous breakdown here. And this is the beauty of the NCAA tournament, though. It really is. To me, it's a lot of fun. I've been out in Vegas one time for the first 2 rounds. It's a blast. It's the only time I would recommend really going out to Vegas because I think that town has gone downhill fast. I really do. It left a very sour taste in my mouth when we came back from the Super Bowl 2 years ago, or a year and a half, whenever it was. It was not a great experience at all, and price-wise and everything else. However, there is nothing like being there, and no matter what hotel, whatever sports book you are in, to have hundreds of people from all around the country, not only gambling on the games, but just the regions. There's a lot of playful banter that goes on back and forth. It is a lot of fun, but I'll have fun watching the games. Starting at 12:15 today. It's going to interfere with my nap time, but I'm going to do it anyway. All right, Angel. I want to try to cram as much as we can in here. Let me see. I'll just play it from here. The Detroit Lions. What did I do? I didn't mean to do that. The Detroit Lions, by the way, have proposed playoff seeding by record, not division winners, amongst other things. Here's Pat McAfee talking about it yesterday on his show.
I believe there has been 6 that have been made public. Here's one. To amend the current playoff seeding format and allow wildcard teams to be seeded higher than division champs if the wildcard team has a better regular season record. So this is obviously from the Lions, because if you do recall, Week 18, Game 17 for the Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings, were between 2 teams that if they won the game, they'd be the number 1 seed in the entire NFC. And if they lost, they'd be the 5th overall seed. So now all of a sudden there's a lot different path to the Super Bowl just because somebody in your division is also having a number 1 overall team league seed. I don't know if they're going to be able to pass this one just because the success of the playoffs, I think the numbers and TV ratings that the playoffs get just right now are absurd. So I think it's going to be tough to get it passed, but I do understand where they're coming from, AJ Hawk.
Yeah, like you said, it does seem like this one would be tough to actually go through. But yeah, I get it. I understand why you would propose this. But yeah, I think more of the rule type changes are the things that you have a better chance to make some change.
And teams from crappy divisions are like, we're not voting for that. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
We got a home playoff game? Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, no, yeah. We understand. Okay, must be nice, Detroit. You remember when you were us? Yeah. You remember when you were us? That will be said in the meeting room, but I do understand.
Yeah, I don't like it because it takes away. Look, and I know it wasn't too long ago Seattle won the division with a 7-9 record. Remember? Then they went on to win a playoff game also. But if you do that, Angel, if you start doing that, then why even have divisions? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. The division, winning the division has got to stand for something. It has to. Otherwise, I'm not going to use the word integrity, but it would leave a sour taste in my mouth. I mean, I don't like it. You got to have, in my opinion, the divisions count for something, and otherwise, why have it? Otherwise, we don't need divisions anymore. We can just do it like the American League and National League used to do before the 70s. Just have the American League and the National League, and only one team makes it. Or in this case, you would just have the top 7 teams make it. It didn't matter what division, but that would stink. That would take away something. Winning the division means something. Go ask the Buffalo Bills and many times the Patriots over the years. Winning the hat and T-shirt game, as we called it, and I'm sure it means something to the players to win the division. It really does.
Sure does.
I don't know how you feel about. I think it takes something away from the game and I don't think that rule will pass. By the way, so I just don't. Other NFL news. Besides the Lions, there's been other significant rule changes proposed as well. The Chargers made a similar proposal back in 23, but did not receive much support. So any NFL team, by the way, can make a rule change proposal for considerations by the owners. The proposals require at least 24 votes to be approved, but owners are generally more likely to approve proposals that are endorsed by the competition committee rather than the individual teams. So, as you know, the owners' meetings are March 30th to April 2nd in West Palm, right here in Florida. So other proposals include a previously reported attempt to ban the tush-push yardage play by the Eagles, have used in recent years, as submitted by the Green Bay Packers, as we thought. The rule would prevent players from pushing a teammate that is lined up directly behind the snapper and receives the snap immediately at the snap. I don't think that's going to pass either. Also, a proposal that would eliminate the automatic first downs that come with an illegal contact or defensive holding penalty, submitted also by the Lions, who led the league last season, by the way, with 11 flags for defensive holding penalties. So usually that's just a 5-yard penalty. But it is a 5-yard penalty, automatic first down. And wouldn't you, lo and behold, they're the Detroit Lions they led the league in defensive holding penalties last year, and they're making their proposal. Also, won by your Eagles, a submission by the Eagles to give both teams a guaranteed possession in overtime during the regular season, aligning with current rules for the playoff games. I think that one's going to pass, Angel. I think that one will pass. I think that's very reasonable. There's nothing, I don't know why we have different rules. And the NHL, I'm not a fan of the shootout, by the way, in the NHL either, because they don't have it in the postseason. You could be playing quadruple overtime in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm glad. I don't like that the regular season has a different rule than playoff for overtime. So I think that one might get a good shot to pass for the Eagles.
It probably will. I'll find out next week. Jeffrey said he's going to send his private jet in on Sunday so I can be there at Palm Beach come next week.
You might be headed down there, right?
Yeah, we're going to have some drinks, some cocktails.
I might join you. I might join you. Tell him to send his private jet to RSW first, because I don't feel like driving 2 hours down Alligator Alley or an hour and a half. I'd rather go with a 15-minute flight. You know what? A puddle jumper's fine for me. Puddle jumper's fine for me. I can, we'll make arrangements at RSW, and I'll just fly over there. We'll pick me up first, RSW, then we'll swing by in Tampa, get you, and then we'll do the 10-minute flight to West Palm on a puddle jumper.
All right, I'll let him know. I'll go through my my connection, aka Rick Marcus, and make sure he detours a plane over to your way and then back to Tampa.
Yeah. By the way, also a resolution for the Pittsburgh Steelers to allow some direct contact between pending free agents and teams that are pursuing them during the 3-day negotiating window that precedes the opening of the league year, which is another, legal tampering amendment. And then finally, a change by multiple teams that would allow preparing K-balls that are used for kicking before the game, before game day, as teams are allowed to do with the balls that are used on other plays. I don't know.
It's just some of this stuff's so freaking petty and ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, so what? The guys just go out there in the field where they push down the ball once, push down the ball a second time, put up on a tee, up in the air it goes.
Stephon Diggs currently in Foxborough yesterday on a free agent visit with the Patriots, by the way. Remember, he tore his ACL in a non-contact play October 27th. 31-year-old, 7th in the NFL in receptions at 47 at the time of the injury. Put on a route running clinic versus the Patriots in the past. But, we'll see. 5 years ago, I would have been really excited about this, even like 3 years ago. But now, I don't know. He's still recovering from an ACL tear. Well, we shall see. All right, Angel, before we take a break and get ready for Monsieur Trevor Harris, speaking of the East Coast of Florida, if we could scroll down a couple. The Steelers, Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee doesn't get Aaron Rodgers right there. It's a couple down. Now, my contention is Aaron Rodgers is going to have retirement on the table. I've been saying this. I don't think anybody wants him. The Minnesota Vikings squashed that rumor, and rightly so, because they're a smart organization to deal with that bullshit. You don't want him going in and contaminating your team. With the way they're playing, the last 2 games aside with Sam Darnold, but nevertheless, they're too smart to bring in all the baggage that is Aaron Rodgers. Then you got the Giants and the Steelers. I don't think Pittsburgh wants them. You heard Cam Howard say yesterday, we'll find that cut too. He's like, I'm not recruiting this a-hole, basically. He's like, I'm not going in any zone of darkness. You either want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. I think a lot of organizations feel though. Everybody's sick and tired. Aaron Rodgers allegedly holding the NFL hostage, but I'm kind of really swinging the other way, Angel. I don't think anybody wants him. Otherwise, this would have been done either with the Giants or the Steelers, and I think he has to consider retirement.
He's going to have to. You go with, if New York Giants should know better, as if you're serious about rebuilding after the cake in the face with the whole Saquon thing and then now winning the Super Bowl. But if New York Giants wouldn't be serious, they need to start handling their issues now rather than get a 1-year rental from Aaron Rodgers, who's not going to get your team anywhere in the first place.
And then, it's going to be with Russell Wilson and all that. So clearly, they don't want Russell Wilson. Okay, here's the boys on Pat McAfee show talking about it yesterday.
DJ, I know you have Jackson Dart going 21 to the Steelers, but a lot of other mocks and, draft analysts have had him really rising up boards and going in like the top 10, top 15. Do you think that's going to be something that we kind of see as we get closer to the draft? What are the odds that Jackson Dart actually goes at like the top half of the first round?
Yeah, I think it's up in the air. I don't think anybody knows, but it is interesting this late in the free agency process that you have a couple teams out there with glaring needs at the quarterback position. So Pittsburgh at this point in time, if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, I think they got to do a lot of homework on these guys, whether that's Dart, Tyler Shuck, whoever. But I just can't see them going into the season with just Mason Rudolph as their guy. To me, that's why I ended up putting Dart there, assuming that Aaron Rodgers doesn't end up in Pittsburgh. And even if he does, I don't know how many years that's going to buy you. If you love one of these quarterbacks, go ahead and take him anyways. But I don't have him as a top 10 player. I think he's like in the 30s or early 40s on my top 50 list. But when you're a team out there and he's better than what you got, he's going to go.
He's got the moxie too, I think. That is the more we watch of Jackson, the more highlights we watch, the more we like him, I think, as an NFL QB. And maybe that
reminds me of Hurts, man. That's my comparison, which is kind of off the wall. It's kind of weird. But with Jalen Hurts, he got better every single year in college. He was athletic, he was smart, he was tough. And you're kind of just betting that it's all going to continue on that trend line. And obviously Hurts, it's gone that way in a big way. But that's kind of that's the thought process. If you're a Jackson Dart team, that's what you're hoping for.
All right. Luna in the background. A couple more things in the NFL. So that's really interesting with Jackson Dart. We'll see. The Patriots, they have the mock draft taking Travis Hunter at number 4, which I think is really, really intriguing for New England if that happens. I'm still torn on that decision if they should. He's a terrific athlete, obviously, Heisman Trophy winner, all that stuff. The Bengals, as we talked about earlier this week with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and lo and behold, unlike an Aaron Rodgers, there was Joey Burrow there to greet them in the locker room after. Very emotional moment. But here's on Sirius XM NFL Radio, Jamar Chase explains the special bond between himself, T. Higgins, and Joey Burrow.
Just watching you and Burrow and T. Higgins work, I'm not kidding. That last 9 weeks of the season, what you guys were doing offensively was ridiculous. There's a bond. There's a pact. There's a bond between you three, and you wanted it to be together.
Yeah, man. I think you know what it is? I just love how we can hold ourselves to, a certain level, and we all expect each other to be there every game. I think that's the biggest thing about us. And the more that we play with each other, the more, we figuring out more we could do, the more we want to get into, like, new roles to play. So I think it's just, still growth as we going. But right now, I think, this is no better than a perfect time to get this done for us.
Tell us and the listeners a little bit about, and I tongue-in-cheek here, but the relationship you have with Joe. It goes back to college. And I'm sure if you want to speak your mind in your own private, quiet way, you can do it with him. Just tell me about you and Joe. Okay, it's the sideline. You lose it by 10 points in the fourth quarter. What's that conversation like?
It depends what kind of game I'm having also. If I'm being honest. It all depends on what kind of game I'm having. Depends what kind of game T's having. But, I'm always asking for the ball. I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't overdo it, but I always want to make a play, so I ask for the ball sometimes. Sometimes he throws it, sometimes he doesn't. I don't fault him for it. He sees things differently. I see things differently too. But, I just want to make a play for the team and, get some momentum going so, we get some points on the board. That's all.
All right, then again, my buddy Pat Kerwin on Sirius XM NFL radio talking about that. I also thought this was funny, and we won't take a break, Angel. We'll keep going until Trevor gets on, and then you can get out and go talk to your people about this, that, and the other thing. Set up that private jet for the NFL meetings.
Yeah, I got to get that set up rather quickly.
This is Jamar Chase. In case you missed this yesterday, also Jamar Chase. I'm staying with the Bengals long term. Interesting stuff here.
For me, I like Cincinnati because it gives me the opportunity to come here and focus. I'm not distracted out here. It's not too many things to get me, off pace out here, and it's strictly what I'm focused on. That's really tunnel vision for me to play football. So, at the end of the day, the food's not the best. We can work on that, but I'm from New Orleans. I'm not used to the food yet. But, overall, honestly, I just think that's the biggest picture for me is that I don't have no distractions here, and I can just play football. And my quarterback's here.
My quarterback. Food stinks in Cincinnati. You know what? I'm trying to think. Been privileged enough to be a lot of cities around the country. I have not been to Cincinnati. I haven't, so I cannot claim. But I don't think he's going to be getting any restaurant endorsements anytime soon.
No, he's not. It's not. Cincinnati's actually. Well, I don't know. I haven't been there in years, but it wasn't bad. I'm pretty sure as the years have gone by, they've gotten a lot better. I would think.
Sure. There's so much competition now, and I watch enough sports shows out there that, cooking shows out there that I don't know. I'm trying to think. I can't believe it's that bad compared to some other cities. There's so much competition now. Maybe he just went to a couple of wrong restaurants. Yeah, I'm not talking about chain restaurants. And if he's basing that like on going to Olive Garden or something like that. No, there's anything wrong with Olive Garden, even though I've never been to one. That's different than going to a regular restaurant. I'm sure Cincinnati has their, Italian, French, Mexican. Everybody does all different sorts of cuisines now with every single city. He's from New Orleans, so I get it. But go ahead.
It's the same way in Philly. Philly's got some place that you just and good places too. Not
Yeah, every city has good and some bad. I think if you're in a major city, you got to keep your standards up because there's too much competition. And everybody's a restaurant critic now. Everybody goes on Yelp and Facebook, and some of them are legitimate complaints. Other ones are just faking bitching and moaning about my napkin wasn't folded properly, or this, that, and the other thing. Anyway, let's do one more video from First Take yesterday. An interesting discussion. Stephen A. Smith, Mad Dog Russo, and Jay Billis had a kind of a heated exchange talking about the NCAA selection process. And, of course, Jay Billis is going to be very defensive of the process. But here's how it sounded yesterday in First Take.
My attitude is this. If you're squeezed in as one of the last four into the NCAA tournament, right, and then you're competing with somebody to really, really get in as one of those last four, how the hell do you end up playing a number six seed on Friday? Shouldn't it be one of those situations where you end up versus the number one seed since you're the one that had to squeeze in? Shouldn't that be the case? Could you explain that to me, Jay?
Well, these first four games came in several years ago when one team left conferences, and now it was about how many automatic and at-large bids are going to be. So they just added teams to the field. And originally it was going to be all the 15 and 16 seeds playing each other. And the first four wasn't a big deal because right now people don't really care about the tournament games until we get to the first Thursday when the 64-team field starts. So they started putting like a big shot 11 seeds against each other for viewership. And because the 15s and 16s felt it was a stigma for them to play in those games, that it's just sort of the bottom of Division I playing in those games. And so now you have a game we were all watching, North Carolina, San Diego State. We were all interested in that. So it's really a TV play in my view. And one last thing, I'm sorry to go on too long, but one last thing about the selection process. I used to kind of lose my mind about 8 or 10 years ago about decisions like North Carolina versus West Virginia or Ohio State or Indiana, because I always felt like the committee year after year was not sticking to the principles that they said were important. But because they do this every year, there are these decisions that don't make any sense relative to their rhetoric I've kind of said, you know what, they're going to do this every year, and it's like complaining about the lines at the DMV. We can complain all we want to. It's not going to change. They're going to keep doing this. So you might as well just I don't even care anymore. Put them in the field, and then we'll deal with the tournament.
Yeah, and that's what I said. Look, and I'm not surprised that North Carolina won handily over San Diego State the other night. That's not the issue. The issue is how they got in and West Virginia didn't. But then when you see how Darian DeVries, a day later, takes a job at Indiana, apparently this has been in the play for like 3 months, and then you wonder why his son Tucker DeVries didn't play, because Tucker is following Daddy over to Bloomington to go play for the Hoosiers next year. That kind of stuff leaves a bad taste in your mouth, despite Governor Morrissey wanted to. Patrick Murray went to sue the NBA. Now I wonder what he feels about his coach leaving for Indiana. Maybe he'll sue him too. But there's always controversy every single year. I'm not complaining that North Carolina won. I thought they would win, and I wouldn't be surprised, even though they didn't pick them, if they beat Mississippi State. That's not going to surprise me either. It's the way, it's why they got in, the process behind it, and the fact that you had Bubba Campbell, who was the AD there, who made an additional $104,000 plus. Because North Carolina got in. It's a bad look. All right, Angel, get that jet ready. I'll check in later. And welcome to the program, as always, on a Thursday. Sometimes it's at 8, 8:30, 7, whatever it is. We head down Alligator Alley and to the pride of WQAM. It is Trevor Harris joining us here on the Pete Sheppard Show.
I love hearing this every Thursday morning. I feel like a hurricane. It's my get-up song. It's in my workout playlist. I'll say that for sure.
It should be. It should be in everybody's workout playlist, you know? Jesus. Oh, by the way, I must tell you, have you seen the new Captain America movie yet?
No, I have not. It's on my long list of movies I need to see anyway.
You're going to love it. What's his name, who's the new Falcon? Not the new Captain America. I forget all the actors' names. But the guy, remember the guy... Captain America now, his sidekick Falcon.
Yeah.
He's like a mini version of Captain America. For a big chunk of the movie, he's a huge University of Miami fan, got the U shirt on and everything. Great pub for the school.
There we go.
What else I get paid for? A green T-shirt, and he loves it. And I think Captain America brings up the U for a second, one of the lines he has, but nevertheless. How you doing over there at Alligator Alley? Now, do you produce Canes baseball as well?
No, we do not have Canes baseball. We used to back in the day, but we don't do it anymore anyway. So
really?
Yeah.
I kind of wish online.
I guess that is run by the student station at University of Miami anyway. So
I know Joe was doing that too. Joe Zagacki was doing their games as well.
Yes, Josie does those games. He does it for ACC Network as well, like the extra one. So it's good for Joe, I like to say.
Yeah, and college baseball is huge and becoming more popular and more popular. We're going to see more of it on ESPN. I don't know the Canes record right now off the top of my head. I know sometimes they play FGCU at here at Fenway South.
Yep.
Or him, but I know FGCU is playing FAU at Hammond Stadium where the Twins play. That's coming up in I think next week. But nevertheless, I haven't seen the Canes record right now.
They are currently 13-9, 0-3 in conference, and they got Florida State this weekend at the Light.
Oh,
at Alex Rodriguez Park.
Yep, wonderful.
I know.
Wonderful.
Just what you need. Florida State.
What's the big buzz this week over there? Anything? The Dolphins have done nothing. There's nothing to talk about with Miami except
the Heat on a 9-game losing streak right now.
That was the lead story this morning on SportsCenter.
Yeah,
the lead story. In fact, in case you missed it last night, here's how it ended.
Inbound. Look at who's guarding Kay Cunningham right now. You got Bam Adebayo guarding him, of course, preparing for a switch. Bam fights through the screen. Cunningham gets the ball against Bam. Pulls up for the win. Got it! Detroit basketball with the lead with 0.6 to go. And they storm into Dade County and get the buzzer-beating win. put some respect on the Pistons' name now. That's what J.B. Bickerstaff, their coach, has demanded of late, and they earned it with the shot. Miami played it perfectly. You got Bam Adebayo, size on Cade, able to move his feet, stay in front. Cade just going over the top, the ability to shoot over the outstretched arm of Bam Adebayo for the game winner to add to what has been a magical season for the motorcade. Now he can throw a game winner to his resume. A brilliant night for Cunningham with 25 points, 12.
Yeah, what do you say? Marching into Dade County. Now he banked that in too. Did you have to produce that last night? Did you
I did not. I did not have to. I don't produce Heat games anymore. They hired 2 new people. They said like, Trevor, we want you to do the things that you want to do. It was like, deal. Oh, I'm happy with that. If I was in that studio cutting highlights, I would have been fist pumping like Josh McDaniels would, because I enjoy every Heat loss, especially this losing streak has been my favorite, honestly, because they lost a whole entire homestand, which they've never done in their franchise history. They went 0-6. They lost 2 games on the road. They lost at the Garden, which is literally my favorite now. Whenever they lose to the Knicks, it's usually I throw a parade for myself. And this one against the Detroit Pistons, and one of my buddies is a Pistons fan. I said Detroit basketball like John Mason would do.
I really hate that. I cannot. I get so pissed, and all the arenas do it, including in Boston and everything. It used to be stop the music and stop the shenanigans as soon as the ball hits half court. Yes. Otherwise, I mean, I hear stuff that goes on, and I'm like, doesn't that mess? I would take the ball and hum it at the guy who's doing the music, and he's probably upstairs. And I'm sure he is upstairs. But I can't stand it. You can't get a moment's peace. You know, I want to hear what the players are saying on the floor. I want to. You know, it's just stupid. Detroit defense. And how about when they start defense? Yeah. And the ball's already 3/4 of the way down. I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I like it when the fans do it, but when it's like it's forced, it sounds bad anyway. Like when I went to the Knick game, all the Knick fans were just starting doing a defense chant. All the Heat fans. Miami people were starting to play music and stuff, or have a Let's Go Heat. Thing,
Orlando used to be the worst. Now they're like just kind of average. Orlando was like, I mean, they were really bad. So much so that I remember that David Stern had to issue a warning, I think, said knock it off, you know. But Adam Silver just doesn't care. Yeah. And I guess it's anything that keeps, because the NBA ratings are bad. Yep. Anything to keep somewhat themed. But, you know, Miami fans are fair weather fans anyway.
Do you want to know what the courtside tickets were for last night, by the way?
What?
You got down to $300.
$300 for courtside.
Yes.
You could buy a ticket for the cheapest ticket and walk down. Well, you know, because they escort you. But, I mean,
yeah.
Nevertheless.
I was like, I saw that. I was like, $300 to go see the Detroit Pistons? Do I want to go? Kind of not want to. Do I want to drive and pay for $50 parking? Not really.
That's just it, right? Parking is $50 as well.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't pay the man anymore. You have to download an app for whatever lot you go to, and like put your credit card in. Boom. Anyways, which I like to give the man here. Take some of my cash and go.
Pay a credit card when you know at the right there when you go in, and then the bar goes up, right? I mean,
yeah, that's what they used to do. Now it's like you go in, they download this app, and like you do the barcode thing you have to scan anyways, and you're good to go. It's like I don't like that all the time. I like to interact with somebody. You know,
you're a people person.
I am. Yeah, man.
Pretty soon it'll be AI. You'll have an AI sticker. That's what's going to be.
An AI sticker will come on every car windshield whenever you go park somewhere. It's just we need.
And then send me. You know what? Then send me a bill at the end of the year.
I don't want that though. I rather just pay it right away. It's like give me the
collect right away. You know,
I don't want to. I don't want a collection agency of how many places I've been for parking and stuff. That's ridiculous, honestly.
All right. Have you filled out a bracket? I only fill out one.
Yes.
Have you filled out a bracket? Give me your final four first off.
Okay.
I'll give you mine if you haven't heard it already, but give me your final four.
The Dukies. I've become a big John Shire fan because I get to sit in those ACC media Zoom meetings as we do stuff for Canes basketball for pregame, like we do for
Mm-hmm.
the pros. Good. I like to try to get in there early, listen to John Shire. That's been my go-to. I'm sorry if everyone thinks I'm not a Duke fan.
You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to. It's everybody has their own opinion. So
Yes.
you're close to the situation. That's important that you sit in. You get to hear those a lot of stuff. A lot of people don't get to hear.
Yes, Leonard Hamilton, very good listen to. I have the Dukies in the Midwest. We have the Vols of Tennessee. In the West, we have the St. John Johnnies. It's good for the city, as we've been saying. It's good for the city.
You got them beating Florida.
Yeah, and in the South, I have Michigan State.
Not bad. Not bad. Now, you and I are on the same bracket on the right with Duke and Tennessee. And I have such trepidation about Tennessee, which I'll tell you about in a second, as you know. And then I have Auburn and Florida on the left side. I do have St. John's losing to Florida in that regional, but I would love to. I have Florida winning the whole thing. I have Florida beating Duke. Yeah, I have Florida beating Duke in the final. I think the Gators are playing the best basketball in the country right now.
I think St. John's Florida will be it's the national title game that's in the Elite Eight. I will say that.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to the second round matchup, hopefully with Arkansas and St. John's and Providence with Rick Pitino and John Calipari. And I don't know if you know what's going on. Bryce Hopkins, the Providence star, who's only played 4 games in 15 months. He's entered the transfer portal. He had $1 million in nil money last year. And you talk about, so apparently the finalists, even though I saw Vermont, and the finalists are, from what I understand, are St. John's and Georgetown to get his services. But don't count out, and I said, don't count out John Calipari, because Providence took him, or he transferred to Providence from Kentucky when John Calipari was coaching Kentucky, and now Cal is back in Providence today playing Kansas, which I think is going to be an entertaining game tonight. It's going to be a high-scoring game.
I actually like Arkansas in that game.
Yes, at St. John's Omaha. But then, so you got the full circle. Could Calipari's name get thrown in the mix here for this Bryce Hopkins thing or whatever? It's amazing. The little backline of stories that are going on. People in Rhode Island are pissed at Bryce Hopkins because they can understand the transfer portal, but him just sitting on the bench all year, and maybe he could have played and did not. And who knows what kind of tampering that goes on. It's just as shady, or maybe this is a little shadier, what happened when Darian DeVries took the Indiana job. And his son, who didn't play since December, Tucker, went over to Indiana with him. Obviously, it was going to happen. And now the big question is, this kid didn't play in all of December. West Virginia got screwed initially. It should have got in. And then you find out, well, maybe he could have played. Coach had this deal done with Indiana probably in January, but just went through the motions of emotion. They went 13-10 without his son playing. Probably they still should have got in. They should have gotten in, but didn't. And now you have this situation where coach and son are going to Indiana. And like I said, I wonder if Governor Patrick Morrissey, wants to sue. He's going to try to sue the NCAA. He's going to waste people's time and money.
Agree.
Try to sue his own coach for leaving. That was the irony of all ironies to me.
The West Virginia suing situation is hilarious, honestly. It's a total it's a gong show.
There's a pissed off team or teams every single year that can do this.
Yep.
Every single year. I mean, if I don't know what kind of sports fan that Governor Morrissey is, but if he follows March Madness and the tournament selection, it's not perfect. We all know that. Every single year, this controversy. I'll bring the story up for the third time this week. I remember back in the mid 80s or early 80s, I can't remember what. DePaul and Notre Dame were fighting it out. They were both 16-14. DePaul beat Notre Dame twice. Guess who got in? Notre Dame. At 16-14, by the way. At 16-14, Digger Phelps, Jedi mind tricking people.
Jesus.
Back in the day.
I say the best game of that week, the week, before the weekend is that it will be the Florida UConn game.
I can't wait for that. You're going up against the defending back-to-back champs.
Yep.
And that will not be an easy game for the Gators, although I think they will win because they just have more talent. But man, you better not take them for granted.
Agree.
Better not.
I'm ready for. As someone knows, I root against UConn, especially if Dan Hurley has been the head coach. I am ready to bring it on the national and local stages. Like, I will be a Gator fan for one day only, so I can see UConn go down in flames.
I'm the opposite. I mean, I'm a Big East guy, but I have Florida winning the whole thing. I'm a realist. I said to everybody, Xavier had an unbelievable win last night against Texas.
Yeah.
They're going to be tough. They're going to beat Illinois, and they're going to advance. And I think Creighton's going to advance today. I think they're going to beat Louisville. You have to say Louisville, Trevor, like you're constipated.
Louisville. I do have Creighton, by the way. I have that. I have Yale.
I have Yale winning tonight as well. You and I are in the same cycle.
I have Yale, Michigan. I have Ole Miss.
I have Michigan too.
Iowa State.
Michigan's one of my best bets. I have 3 best bets today.
I like Michigan.
Michigan tonight -2.5. I like over 144.5 in the Kansas Arkansas game. And early on, it's the only 3 games I'm playing. I like Creighton +2.5 against Louisville.
Okay, I like that. I do like I think my one bet I have for the weekend is give me Arizona to get to the Sweet 16 and play Duke. Just a classic like blue blood rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
I think they can.
Well, I think you just brought up. Finish your thought, and I want to get into what actually does blue blood mean anymore.
I think the blue. We'll go over that. When I think of blue blood, I think of teams that have cachet, who have product of NBA players who do well in college, that go to the pros and just do really well. Mm-hmm. My blue bloods are Arizona. You have UCLA, Kentucky, Duke. You could throw in. I throw in Michigan because you have the Weber.
North Carolina. And what about Gonzaga? What about teams like that? See, I think blue blood is very subjective now. Yeah. What about Villanova? What about UConn?
I say Villanova. I say that whole Big East quadrant of like Georgetown, UConn, Syracuse, Pitt when they want to play good, but they don't no longer with Jamie Dixon. You throw Villanova in there. You throw in most of the Big East schools in that quadrant of like Syracuse, UConn, Georgetown, and Villanova. Anyways, so which I want to see who Villanova's going to hire though.
Blue blood is Wisconsin a blue blood? I mean, what does that really mean? I think a lot of people, especially down in the ACC and the SEC, think that they're somehow special now, and they get pissed off when Northeast teams win or people in the Midwest win. It really pisses people down here off, SEC country and ACC country.
Most ACC.
What defines blue blood? What defines blue blood? North Carolina squeezes in. They're a blue blood. I mean, Indiana blue blood. I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying they're not. To me, there's 100 blue bloods.
Yeah,
because it's such an even playing field now. To be a blue blood or not a blue blood, I mean, what does it really?
Indiana's not a blue. Indiana's not a blue blood because they've just been bad by whole average my whole entire life anyway. So,
well, they've had some decent teams. They just haven't gone particularly far.
Yeah, like the only thing I can think of is Victor Oladipo. That's really it.
Yeah. Well, you know, they've had the best was 2 years ago when I was on the covering the Hurricanes and the. Miami boys and girls knocked out Indiana in consecutive days. That was wonderful.
That was a fun day to be in Miami, anyways. That's what people actually care about.
Twins going off. It was beautiful, you know.
My only big thing is like, why can't we get any of these division like these like first four like the Sweet 16? Why can't we get them down in cool stadiums like Rupp Arena? I know it's a college basketball hotbed. Like, can we put these in like cool places like Dallas, like Miami, Charlotte, like basketball hotbeds at least? Like places where people want to go.
Charlotte has the ACC tournament, so they have that.
Like how Florida doesn't how the state of Florida does not have any of these college basketball games is ridiculous. Because I would want to go to half these games and just.
But they've had them in Tampa, and they've had them at Sunrise.
Yeah,
right. They've had them.
They haven't had them since in Miami since 2009.
Really?
Yeah, it's been that long, and I was like, why aren't we getting these? Because I would love to like.
Depends who's seated. Well, maybe it's because of fans. Like I know, and I'm not just saying this where I know in Providence, every time they have it there, there's 4 games today and 2 on Saturday, that every seat will be filled for the most part, especially the night action with St. John's closing it out against Omaha.
Yeah.
It's still a lot. I mean, and Calipari. I mean, it's going to be, and Purdue playing the early game against High Point. I mean, I think they pick regions that are in arenas that are going to attract people, the casual or neutral college basketball fan.
Okay.
And what's interesting is, and the Garden has had in Boston has had the regionals and first and second round also, but there's more passion for college basketball in Providence than there is in Boston. Mm-hmm. It's always been that way. Why? I do not know. I really don't. But at least that is the word on the street for many years. You know, Providence, Boston, you know, separated by an hour.
Yeah.
Basically, not even. Well, with traffic, 5 hours, but it's
Maybe
you know,
6, depending on the pass.
yeah. You know, you would get like if you had Purdue and High Point playing at the Garden this afternoon,
Yeah.
it wouldn't get the same amount of people as they will in Providence today when that's for that same game going on there. The nightcap, you get the but even then, you would not get the same kind of crowds that would stick around for 4 games in Boston that you would in Providence. It's a weird type of a thing.
Yeah, that's been my big thing. Is like we both live in South Florida. How these games aren't at American Airlines, wherever the Miami Heat arena is called.
Yeah,
they're not there is perfect, anyways. You know,
They probably look at the Heat attendance and they go, and they look at the Hurricanes. Besides the Final Four, hopefully they'll get back on track next year.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe that's got to be a part of it. But certainly having it at Tampa, I think has been a success over the years. And USF, and they lost their coach this year, which was terrible.
Yeah.
FAU made it to the Final Four.
Dusty's in Michigan now, killing it. So
before I let you go, I got to take a break before Bill Sparrows comes on. So my one trip, I went back and forth every year. I have Tennessee knocked out by the second round because Rick Barnes is 30-28 as a head coach, and he's had some wonderful teams in Providence, Clemson, Texas, and now at Tennessee. 30-28 in the postseason. Do you know how many of those knockouts came in the first round of the 28 losses?
All of them?
No, it didn't lose 28 first round. No. But 11 out of the 28 losses he has in the postseason have come in the first round, which is why Watford tonight scares the shit out of me with 19 points. And I know it's a 15-2 matchup, but I've seen Syracuse go down in a 15-2 matchup before. And I always say this too.
And Georgetown too, by the way.
Rick Barnes just finds a way to lose. But I have Tennessee in my Final Four too, and I'm going to regret it. I know it.
One who I usually take very far. I believe in Tommy Lloyd a lot. I'm always scared of Tommy Lloyd in the first round. That's why, as an Arizona basketball fan, he scares the crap out of me. Anyways, he does great in the regular season in the conference tournament. He scares the crap.
I have Gonzaga as my sleeper team, winning a few games.
I do too.
No one's expecting Mark Few and Gonzaga, and I have them beating. Not only do I have them winning the 8-9 game against a very overrated Georgia team today, but I have them beating Houston. I think Houston's they're going to knock off the number 1 seed.
Are you really stealing my bracket? Because I literally have that, by the way.
Yeah, and then I have Gonzaga beating Clemson, and then Gonzaga playing Tennessee, and Tennessee beating them in the regional.
Yeah, I got my bracket. Yeah, I think that's perfect. I think the other big thing is for me is I don't believe in Bama past Sweet 16 at all. That's just me. I have a weird feeling Wisconsin could do something. I always believe in those guys somehow.
Well, Wisconsin is not with the Wisconsin that your fathers and grandfathers grew up watching, where they score 50 points a game. They score 80 points a game, so they can be very tough. Although they threw up a lot of bricks against Michigan in the final of the Big Ten last Saturday, but nevertheless, they're a good team. Michigan threw up less bricks, which is why Michigan won.
Yes, I think that'll be a fun one as someone who loved Sam Decker back in the day at Wisconsin.
Sam Decker.
All
right, my friend.
All right, you can check me out at the Hard Rock today. I'm gonna go watch college basketball with Odyssey Buckets and Bets. I'm there today and tomorrow. So
awesome, man.
So if any of the listeners of the Pete Sheppard Show, say what up to me, please. I'll listen to your sports takes. We'll talk college hoops, and you can tell me why I'm crazy that I don't believe in Tommy Lloyd all the time.
All right, my friend. Enjoy the March Madness. Trevor Harris, WQAM. We'll see you next week. Quick break here on the Pete Sheppard Show, and then Bill Sparrows is going to join us. And Phil Castanetti, Sports World in Saugus, Mass. is New England's place to buy or sell the finest in sports memorabilia. For over 35 years, Sports World has offered the finest in sports collectibles. Get down there at 184 Broadway in Saugus. Call them at 781-233-7222 for more information. That's 781-233-7222 for more information. Sports World in Saugus. Be there. I think Phil is on vacation this week, if I'm not mistaken. I saw some great pictures of him in Tuscany. Yes, that Tuscany in Italy. All right, quick break. Then Bill Sparrows from the Boston Herald and Bookies.com joins us next here on the Pete Sheppard Show on the Coastal Sports Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey everybody, it's Pete Sheppard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad.
Welcome back. It is the Pete Sheppard Show here on a March Madness Thursday. And we continue our great show. Thanks to Trevor Harris for joining me over at QAM. Now we can turn our attention to the recently turned 21-year-old birthday boy, Bill Sparrows from the Boston Herald and from bookies.com. And happy birthday again for the fifth time in the last 5 days. And we've had a wonderful time. You were down here in Southwest Florida, God's country, over the last week. We got to get to meet your lovely wife, Amy, and we got to and your whole family. Met your whole family at Fenway. That was a lot of fun celebrating your birthday. That was a great time, and thank you for that. We had a blast. It was
It was great. It was fun. Figure you only turned 60 once, and
you're not
it was as much a thank you to a lot of people as it was a celebration. So it was a good time.
Absolutely was. Now, before we get into this, that, and the other thing, have you filled out a bracket? I'm only a one bracket per. I do one bracket. I've never done multiple. I do one just for shits and giggles. I submit to one to the ESPN, and that's it. But you don't even bother with it?
No, I don't. It's funny. I went to Marquette.
Yeah.
It's a Val McGuire, and I was a kid when that happened. I thought it was cool.
77, yep.
I had a journalism school, and I enjoyed it when I was there, and I watched them, but I'm just not, I probably shouldn't say this. I'm just not a big tournament guy. My wife's a UConn fan, so I'll watch UConn. My son went to Florida. I went to Marquette, but I've never really been like a crazy tournament 50 brackets kind of guy.
Well, I'm not
But
saying 50
I'm in the
bracket.
minority there.
But I'm sure the Herald has an office pool and stuff. Even you can submit it by email. I mean, so you don't participate.
No. Well, I don't gamble during Lent, but that's another story. I just, for me, I think it's great. Um, for people who have to go in the office and work, it gives them an excuse to have a couple of fun days this week and next week. It's always fun that Thursday. It's
Today.
not the Super Bowl, but it's like the Super Bowl light, which I think is important, obviously, for my profession, for your
Mm-hmm.
profession. It brings a lot of people into sports that aren't necessarily regular fans or traditional fans. I've done a lot of reporting on this from the gambling end, and that's the way they see it. It's just a way to get, new people into their books or on their apps. And it's certainly very conducive to betting. And it's really, you really have to take it easy. You have to step back. If you're going to bet, because now there's 64 games left. There's 63
I
games
like
left.
3 tonight. I've isolated 3 myself, but you're right.
Yeah.
You got these other people. I mean, unless you're putting like 50 cents, which you can do in some places, or $1. I mean, there's people that'll bet every game. Some people, if they're going to do all the games, they'll do $1 and see what. But you can't be a serious gambler and bet every single one of these. You can't. I mean, unless you're a gazillionaire and can afford.
Well, I mean, again, it's all about numbers, right? Why dilute your chances? If you got 10 balls in the air, you could say, well, that gives me 10 more opportunities to win, but it's also 10x the money you've spent. So
Exactly.
you're not really increasing anything. You're just replicating the same thing over and over again. So the strategy is to find, look for, I think overall, it's more unders than overs.
Especially in the first round.
And in this round and these first 2 rounds, you'll see a lot of big spreads that don't necessarily cover.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to be careful on those, because there'll be like a 135-71 win, and then there'll be a 57-55 215 game. So you really have to look into each of these matchups and look for teams that have been together, schools where you have like perennially, like a Michigan
Absolutely.
State, where you've
Yeah.
always had a program and not players, right? That's why a place like UConn always does so well, because they have a program. They're not just an NBA farm system. So, you want to look for teams like that, especially in the earlier rounds, that are going to be more defensive minded and more controlling on the offense, maybe even more physical. They'll keep other teams that are either A, just happy to be there, or B, heavily reliant on 1 or 2 guys. So
It's a
there are
great point.
some metrics you can look at, in betting the tournament that are pretty consistent over time. And the other thing you always, you have 14 SEC teams in the tournament,
Which is a joke.
and you're going to see a team like Florida or Auburn or one of these top 4 SEC teams. They might very well get knocked out by another conference team, where they might not lose to another, outside of conference.
Yeah,
I don't think UConn
look at the
faced
second round
anybody.
matchup. UConn Florida could be a second round matchup.
Yeah, and I don't see any.
I have Florida winning the whole thing, but that is going to be, if anybody thinks Dan Hurley and the back-to-back champs are going to go down without a fight, they're crazy. That'll be a hell of a matchup.
Yeah, but again, I don't think UConn played any Big East teams in the tournament last year when they won it, and I think that helps. That's why I think these SEC teams are at a disadvantage, only because they're going to probably have to play at least one.
Well, Xavier knocked one out last night. That's one down. And I think Gonzaga is going to knock out Georgia. Gonzaga is my sleeper team this year, because no one's expecting them to do anything with Coach Mark Few. I think the first number 1 seed to go down is going to be Houston on Saturday or Sunday, whenever they play. But you were absolutely right. It's so. I think A&M is going to lose to Yale. I think Yale is going to beat them. So I think there's 3 SEC teams that I know of that could be knocked out in the first round. But I still have Florida and Auburn in that bracket in the Final Four, along with Duke. And I picked I so did not want to pick Tennessee. I so didn't want to do it.
So if you have 3 SEC teams in your Final
Yep.
Four, any one of those 3 can win it.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way to say. I mean, unless you're really like, and I don't take away anything from people who are, unless you're really granular. You know, you're really into the weeds. Kind of like how I am during college football season. You know, you can see why Georgia might beat Alabama or why
Yeah.
Georgia might beat Texas. But again, it's conference on conference, and these teams have played, already this year, and that's so hard, especially at that level. So there's a lot to look at. There's a lot of data out there, obviously. Again, if you want to bet this, you want to, maybe pick 1 or 2 games each day, but you also want to have a couple of futures bets to keep yourself kind of interested, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe SEC team to win the national title. I think that's even money or pretty close to it. Something like that might be good. As opposed to just picking one team that you think, if you think somebody's going all the way, well, go for it.
Yeah.
I did
Like
that
a
with
St.
Connecticut.
John's is good value.
I did that with Connecticut last year. I got them at 20-1.
Yeah.
So, if you like somebody, if you think St. John's is going to do it, you like them, by all means. But otherwise, you might want to look for things like, how many an SEC team in the Final Four, a Big Ten team in the Final Four, that kind of stuff, where you don't. You sort of you're hedging a little bit, but it gives you something of interest. It keeps you involved, into the last weekend, into that Final Four weekend, or and then if you might want to pocket your money and maybe then take half of it and try to pick a winner in the title game or the total in the title game or something like that.
How do you factor in, or if you would? I know you're not doing anything through because it's Lent, but if you were. So a team like Tennessee for me and Rick Barnes, and I've witnessed him, a wonderful man, great coach, wonderful human being. But when you're 30-28, Bill, as in the postseason, and out of those 28 losses, 11 of them have come in the first round. I've seen it in Providence, Clemson, Texas, now Tennessee. And they have 19-point favorites tonight against Wofford. It's not a game I would bet. It's not one of the 3 I've isolated. But it's a 2-15 matchup. We've seen a couple of 2s go down in the NCAA tournament before. If you were doing, would you factor past performance by a coach in the tournament into something like a game like today where they're favored by 19?
I do, because it's indicative of the type of program. Like you look at Michigan State. Michigan State, you just know they're going to be in the Sweet 16. It's just like a given every year because of the way that Tom Izzo runs that program.
Yep.
And I would think the same holds for a lot of one and dones. Where you're, you if you're recruiting, and you're going to have players that aren't going to be there next year, but you still take them. That's a little less of a system that's going to help you in the tournament, because if you're a one and done and you lose, it's kind of like, meh, I was going to go to the NBA anyway. But if you're looking to come back next year, you're like, damn, I don't want to have to live with this. I think you're a little bit more invested in the program and invested in the program's success when you're going to be there next year. I think that's just obvious. So I don't know anything about Wofford. But if Wofford is really not that good, and they want to make a statement, they're going to win by 50. But if Wofford's any good, it may go down to the buzzer. That to me would be like, I'd have to look at this matchup to see what Wofford has.
Well,
if they're like, no chance, you look at 19 and to your point, they might want to blow somebody out. But I think what really happens at a lot of these Thursday games is you let up. You want to wrap it up with 12 minutes to play. You bench your starters because you got to play in 2 days, and you have to
Yeah.
play a real team in 2
Mhm.
days. So I think a lot of these big spreads in the first round tend to miss because, teams will go out on these great leads and they'll sit everybody with 8 or 10 minutes to play. And then the scrubs will, be outscored like 20-3 down the stretch. And a 30-point lead becomes 18 at the buzzer. I think that's probably more what you want to be concerned of if you're going to bet at Tennessee. And a game like that is the fact that it's a first round game and, you got to play the next. You're playing
Yeah.
in 2 days.
Well, to your point, Wofford, they would not have gotten in the tournament. They're one of those teams that had to win, and they won the Southern Conference. They beat East Tennessee State, Virginia VMI, and Furman, upset Furman in that one to get there. But again, I go back to, even though Tennessee the last couple of years, they've been to the Elite Eight, they've been to a Sweet 16, but I can't get the 11. This is the type of game that if Rick Barnes lost, I wouldn't be surprised. There's no reason why they shouldn't clobber this team and win by 30. But I'm still thinking around 9 o'clock tonight, as there's 4 minutes left of the game, that if you are a Tennessee Vols fan, you're going to be doing poopy pants. I'm not even talking about the 19-point spread. I'm just talking about winning the game because I've seen it too many times in the past. But we shall see.
Now
Every
you're
year,
thinking, boy, too bad I can't. I should bet this. I should bet this Wofford, the mighty Woffers.
So you're gonna watch Marquette in New Mexico tonight, right? Another Patino, Richard Patino, coaching in that one against Shaka.
Yeah,
That should
yeah.
it should be a hell of a game. I like Marquette.
Yeah. I like. Marquette they're doing it right. They got a great coach. He can be coached for life if he wants. They are building a program, and much like I think they're trying to copy what UConn does, which is fine. I think that's the way to do it. So yeah, of course. I mean, I watch them. They're my team. They're my school. When I used to do brackets, I would pick them to win every year. Or usually when I did, I would put my bracket the day after the national championship game. But it never won. I didn't get paid. So I figured no. The odds of getting getting a perfect bracket if you kind of know what you're doing, as opposed to the mathematical odds of 62 times 2 times 2 to the 65th power versus okay, I think Tennessee can beat Wofford because you're just picking winners. It's like 128 billion to 1.
Yeah.
So I mean it is the ultimate fool's errand. I think, and I've written this. I've write this every year. I think it's like if you take everyone who does like the ESPN brackets, 60 odd million people, and they each do a bracket, it would take 270 years to get one person to get it right. Some crazy stat along those lines.
Mhm.
So again, it's like a lottery, right? Frankly, I think 4-leg parlays are like lotteries, but yeah, it's like buying a lottery ticket. It's a Powerball ticket if you want to fill out a bracket. You're not going to get every game right, but if you win your pool, good for you, right? It's
Where do you stand on? I had a couple on the Hard Rock app down here this week, and I've been cashing out more and more because I do a few 4-legged parlays. But if 3 of them are up and the last one is pending, I cash out. And I've been lucky enough that was the right move because I had one last night, and the Cavaliers was my last team, and I cashed out before that game, and they lost. I had them on the money line, and they lost. So, I mean, where do you recommend doing that? If say, just stick with the 14 parlays. If you've won 3, and you got time, and then you get offered, you're not going to, you're going to get, you're going to win. I'm not going to win the entire thing, obviously, but do you recommend if you hit 3 out of 4 and you can cash out, or do you say roll the dice, take your chances?
Well, I don't recommend 4-leg parlays, but so by virtue of that logic, yes, I would always cash out.
Every year we hear, okay, there's going to be more millions of dollars bet on March Madness than the year before. We're hearing it again this year, so you're hearing the same thing. And because so many states now have it legalized, you don't have to go to, technically go to Vegas anymore. But so you believe this will be the most ever bet on March Madness, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the AGA changed their metrics this year. They used to do every year, they would say, oh, like $100 billion going to be bet on the Super Bowl. This year they changed that, frankly, because the people who pay them are all the legal operators, and they all kind of got sick and tired of them promoting illegal gambling. So now when you get figures from the AGA like this one about college basketball and NCAA tournament, that does include like office pools and stuff, because that's a big part of it. But like now when they report figures, it's only legal betting. Like their Super Bowl figure this year was only legal betting because, frankly, that's kind of what their job's supposed to be. So it was a little kind of weird that they would be saying, oh, yeah, illegal books, this, that, the other thing. Yeah, obviously you have more people. You haven't had any new states come online because North Carolina came on last year at the start of March Madness. So this is the first time since 2018 we haven't had any new states on between the last tournament and this tournament. So it'll be interesting to see what happens because you're not adding another state this year.
I ask you this every week, though. Why? I mean, other governors and other politicians in other states see the numbers that every other state is doing. How do you say no to that? How do you say no to millions of dollars in tax revenue that can hopefully go help to do what tax revenue stuff is supposed to do, help people? How do politicians? I don't get it. Why they don't get it? If that makes any sense.
I understand what you're saying, and I know we've talked about this a lot off your show and even on it. But again, it's every single state has a different story. That's the best way I can put it. And with Georgia, for instance, where it failed to even get to the House this year, I mean to the Senate this year, House bill failed. Last year, it actually crossed over, and then they didn't pass it. But the issues are always there's unrelated issues at times. We've seen that in Georgia, Texas, Minnesota, and then there's the gambling is bad argument. So the gambling is bad argument, as I've said to you and anyone else who will listen, the gambling is bad argument is growing and it's picking up steam for a lot of reasons. One, the industry is big now, so the faults are bigger. In other words, you have more problem gamblers because you have more gamblers. The ratio is still the same, but you have more of them. You also have a lot of anecdotal stories that get a lot of play, like the guy and the woman in New Jersey whose ex-husband blew all their money before they got divorced, and now she hired an attorney to try to, sue the sports books. That case isn't going anywhere.
No.
But you have plaintiffs' attorneys that are trying to make a name for themselves, trying to make a buck. You actually have some research, which is what I look at. And again, even some of that, none of it's been peer reviewed, but it gets a lot of coverage. And, you have the excesses, the bankrupt or banned, all that stuff is magnified now because these books are large. Some of them are profitable. They've fully permeated sports. And you do have a lot of people who believe that gambling never existed until they saw a DraftKings ad. And to me, that's really my first point of education is I tell people, look, I can accept and understand that you think gambling is bad and all that, but don't tell me it started the day that David Ortiz did a DraftKings ad. And I always use the example of how the National League almost folded in 1877 because there were players on the Louisville Grays that were fixing exhibition and regular season games. So these problems, the integrity, they call it integrity issue. Tim Donaghy would be considered an integrity issue right now. So these integrity issues that, people say, we can go back to the points that we were shaving in Boston, if you want.
Dr. Tom Davis great coach and everything. He moved on to Iowa, but he kind of got off Nobody ever mentions him in the Henry Hill thing. I mean, we all know the story now. If you don't, back in the day, and BC was good. I mean, then it was before Bagley got right around that time where Gary Williams took over the program. But Dr. Tom put together a very good program over there. And then all that shit happened. Then he bolts for Iowa, and no one really ever talked to him, even in the 30 for 30 that was done, which I saw live. I forget his name, who was part of the whole thing. We sat next to each other during the screening in Boston. But isn't that weird? I mean, can you imagine if that happened today and the coach kind of you never heard from him? You know, he just kind of went to Iowa and that was it. He didn't have to testify or anything, as far as I know. You know, nothing to see here, nothing going on.
Well, as they say, you either knew or you should have known.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's the way I would look at that. If you didn't know, you should have known.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So quickly with the Patriots, Stephon Diggs was in Foxborough. This doesn't excite me at all because I don't know if he's going to get he's 31 years old, tore his ACL late October last year. Yada, yada, yada. 7th in NFL in receptions with 47 before he went down. You know, that it doesn't really.
I mean, what else is new?
Yeah.
For that. They're doing it on the cheap when it comes to offensive players. I mean, someone needs to tell Robert Kraft that they don't have Tom Brady anymore, and Drake May is going to get killed. So, you know, you could do it on the cheap when you had Tom Brady and you had that offensive line. Brady left 5 years ago, but the Patriots have yet to change the way they do business 5 years after Tom Brady left. And that's, you know, to me, that's the problem. And I understand Vrabel loading up on defense because they needed to do that too. I don't discount that, but there's a reason why they're in this hole where they have to fix everything. And, you know, it's because of ownership and leadership, ownership, whatever you want to call it, that, you know, refuse to adapt. I mean, I'll say this about Belichick, at least he's adapted. You know, he's accepted his role as a side
yoga instructor.
Yeah, a side piece. He's a side piece. He's an Instagram, you know, he's a circus act or county fair sideshow is how I put it in the paper the other day. You know, he's accepted the fact that, you know, his coaching career is over. He's, you know, he's going to go out like a clown. So, you know, at least he's good for him.
Well, but on the field, I think North Carolina they're going to make people turn their heads. That he's not going to be a clown with that organization. It's not going to happen. They will be successful. There is no.
I don't doubt that.
His yoga stuff on the side with his 26-year-old girlfriend. That to me is a little. I won't say disgusting. It's just fucking creepy as all hell. It just is. Of
course it is.
A guy.
But again, you have to remember. You know, again, and I alluded to some of this the other day, you know, remember, this is the guy that used to chant no days off. And now he's spending his days off posing for Instagram photos on a beach with a woman dressed as a fish. So no, if I'm a young, analytic-driven GM, I'm not going to put this idiot in charge of my football program. Not talking about North Carolina. I'm talking about the NFL. Yeah. And I actually used this line in the paper the other day. I mean, he's given cover to every coach, every GM who didn't hire him. And he's given cover to Kraft, too. Like Robert Kraft could say, you guys are saying, why did I fire Bill? And he just looks at her Instagram page and say, that's why I fired him. So he's given everybody a reason as to why he didn't get hired. But after spending 2 days at that Sloan Analytics conference in Boston a couple of weeks ago, where Scott Pioli, not Belichick, but Scott Pioli was the resident old fart. And, you know, he was like, you know, guys over 50 aren't that bad. And I'm thinking, holy smokes, if guys over Belichick, it's like he's a fossil. So the entire world of professional sports, not just the NFL, has changed so much. In terms of how these teams are operated, how the businesses are run, how the football is run. And there's no way anyone, you know, again, I guess there's always a Mark Davis out there that is of questionable breeding and intelligence.
It only takes one.
Yeah. But I don't even know if there's that one anymore where I can understand why the Falcons didn't hire him. And sure, Kraft said what he said, but it's also this entire new mentality with football that's really come on, maybe even just post-COVID. I think someone said at this seminar, it might have been Demoff, the last 34 GMs hired in the NFL are under the age of 50. So I don't think anyone's going to hire a 73-year-old guy, as great as he is, and he still knows more about football than anybody else alive, except for maybe Jimmy Johnson. But, how do you translate that into running an NFL team in 2025? I don't think you can do that anymore. You can do it in college because the college is going to give him what he wants. You got to CC his girlfriend on a freaking email about the schedule. So
it's just unbelievable.
He has got that complete control that he wanted, and there's no way that's going to fly in the NFL. And, you may be right about North Carolina. I haven't really looked into who they've gotten in terms of NIL or recruiting yet. But I'll tell you what, if it doesn't work, he'll be gone in a year. So,
well, yeah, they have that right to do that. He's got a great contract there too. Basically, exactly. But my gut feeling is he'll be pretty successful there. I don't know about national titles or anything like that, but I just feel in my heart and in my head that he's going to turn some heads and go, we got to be wary of this guy. We got to be wary of this team because kids do want to go there because of him.
Well,
He
doesn't
have to sit at the dinner table, in Widgetville, Idaho, to recruit people. They're coming to him.
Yeah. Well, again, I would never discount that when it comes to him, but unless he wants to just be an in-game coach and take the players that he's given and mold them in the way that he can, he's never getting back into the NFL.
I think you're probably correct. Bill, this was awesome. As always, Bill Sparrow's birthday boy turned 21 again. Wonderful time meeting you and your family last week. It was great. And continued success with the Boston Herald and on bookies.com. And, I know you're abstaining from betting for Lent. I will bet for you. And
Please do. I encourage your listeners to do so as well.
All right, my friend. We'll talk next week. Thanks so much.
All right. Take it easy, Pete.
All right. Thank you. There he is, Bill Sparrows from the Boston Herald and bookies.com. Quick break. Mick Colagio going to join me. We'll try to talk some NHL and see if Mick filled out a bracket. As well. Great guy. The Bruins suck. They're not going anywhere. That 2-game win streak they had was an aberration, as I thought it was against Tampa Bay and Florida a couple of weeks ago. They have since hit rock bottom and continue to fall. And then the stupid Montreal Canadiens can't seem to lose. Meanwhile, all right, so Mick Colagio up next here on the Pete Sheppard Show at 9:30. Mia O'Brien from 10XL in Jacksonville will join us. Also here in the Pete Sheppard Show on the Coastal Sports Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey everybody, it's Pete Sheppard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants,
By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And, with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have anybody to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
Okay, men, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're gonna go out there and be an all-star caregiver. It's up to you. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna go grocery shopping, cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You gotta dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments. Don't you forget about the pharmacy. I know you won't, because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. This is your time to show the world, your family, and yourself that you're tougher than tough. Now go out there and be the best caregiver this world has ever seen. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing. But not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
The Pete Sheppard Show. It's fun for the whole family, if it's dysfunctional.
see. One of the best NHL insiders I know. I can't handle it, how the Bruins suck, and Toronto and Montreal, who seems to be on a massive, they won 7-1-2. The Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs could be in the postseason, and the Bruins will not be in the postseason. I'm not sure I can handle that. I don't know the last time that's happened, but I don't like it. Good morning, Mick. How are you?
Oh, I know. Yeah, you know it. You know what's funny? The Bruins have been such an embarrassment of riches for what are we going on here? Well, 10 years since 9 years since they missed the playoffs, and it was no garbage time because both of those years, 15 and 16, it went down to the final day of the season and they missed. And you got to go back to the Dave Lewis year, or 6-07, the first year of Zdeno Chara and Mark Savard, for the Bruins to, while Peter Chiarelli was still furiously shuffling his deck, that they missed the playoffs where there was actually garbage time. So you got to go back almost 20 years for the Bruins to have garbage time. And during this embarrassment of riches, especially these last several where they've averaged 50 wins per 82 games, and which is almost unheard of. And yet a lot of Bruins fans are feeling like, hockey's better when Montreal's good. I wish Montreal was good. I wish we had the rivalry. Well, guess what? They're almost good, and you're not.
They've been one of the best teams in the NHL the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's unbelievable, and they're still the way they've won. They won back-to-back games. They're 7-1-2 in their last 10, but they're still a -16. But they are a team that no one, I don't think, is going to want to play in the first round of the playoffs should they get in. But geez, it just sucks. The Maple Leafs, I know, will lose in the first round, no matter who they play.
Well, what's funny is nobody knows who's going to play who right now in the Atlantic because Florida and Toronto are right there with the same record, and Tampa Bay is 2 points behind with a game in hand. You can't get closer than that. So who knows who's going to play who there? But it looks like Toronto's going to have to play, unless Toronto can win the division, they will wind up playing either one of those teams. And if they win the division, does anybody really want to play Brady Tkachuk and an Ottawa Senators team that's been waiting this long to get into the playoffs, and Linus Ullmark if he gets hot? Holy crap.
How about Brady versus Keith in the second round matchup, or maybe even a conference final if it works out that way? Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, it would, although I don't like Florida's chances of winning more than one series. History dictates that the team that won the Stanley Cup the year before won't go that far. And I know the Lightning would say, hey, what about us? What about us? We went to the Stanley Cup final 3 times in a row, and nobody has done that. Well, guess what? 2020 doesn't count, period. A bubble tournament, a full off season after the regular season supposedly relates to, does Montreal. The next year they beat Montreal because there was a Canadian division and people had problems with Kucherov and the LTIR and all of that. I actually give them 21 because 21, they were all that in a bag of chips. They deserved to win. They were clearly the best team in the NHL. The next year, I have all respect for them for going 6 games with the Avalanche when they were so banged up. So the Lightning, did they deserve 2 championships there? Yes, but they only really got 1. And so if the Florida Panthers make it to this Stanley Cup final, they will be the only team to make 3 legitimate Stanley Cup finals in a row since what? The New York Islanders in 1984, which won 5 in a row, which was the only team in the expansion era to do that.
Yeah, and I still think that they won game 1. I think they lost 1-0. That they would have won that. They would have won 5 in a row. I hated Edmonton back then. What are you feeling about Alex Ovechkin closing in on Gretzky's mark? Before we get into back to the Bruins and some lineup changes, I think you and Hags brought up yesterday or the day before on the podcast that you did, and I totally agree with it. But how do you feel about Alex Ovechkin breaking Gretzky's record?
Well, I'm not like Glenn Sather. I don't want him to not have the record because he's a Russian, and I don't want a Russian to have it. I don't begrudge him that. So I want to say that as a preface to this. For me, it's not the record. He has to go score about 50 more goals in order to catch Gretzky because, to me, the playoffs count. And career milestones, the playoffs should count. So I'm not going to go stomping around mad while they're celebrating this and interrupting. It's an incredible, so unlikely career achievement for anybody to catch Wayne Gretzky's career goal scoring record. But it's the career regular season career goal scoring record. The total goal scoring record belongs to Gretzky, but it's 50 something more goals. I figured it out one day. It's easy to figure it out. Go on Hockey Reference and look these guys up. And you can see that Ovechkin, if he can play a couple of more years and get that far, then my many, many hats that you can tell I wear to heat up my head in the New England winter is all his. And God bless the man. He is a beast. Mm-hmm. He's an incredible athlete. He almost ran me over once because I was visiting with Brian Pothier, who was his teammate with the Washington Capitals about 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And Potsy that game had been concussed by Milan Lucic, but he was well enough to go visit with a bunch of New Bedford homies who had come up and made a trip to TD Garden to come wish him well. And mm-hmm. while he was there, I went out to go see how he was doing. And as I turned to leave from the adoring crowd at the Velvet Rope, I was running back to do my story. And as soon as I turned around, Alex Ovechkin was right in front of me, face to face. And I almost ran right into Alex Ovechkin. And his athleticism, he pulled up so I felt like we're in the Matrix. It was like,
and you're a tall guy. I'm
big. I'm big. And so we came like face to face, and he like pulled up in a dime so that we were like the Matrix, like David Krejci. It's kind of like you come this close to somebody and you don't touch them, and it's like, wow. The fact that he did that, and I mean, I could have been like in the hospital.
Pulled the muscle. You could have caused injury to him. He could have pulled up and pulled the muscle. Imagine that. How did it happen?
I don't think I could hurt Alexander Ovechkin any more than Evgeny Svechnikov when he picked a fight with him some years ago.
No, I mean just pulling up and turning on a dime, and you tweak not because he hit you, but because he was avoiding you, and like an OTA football injury, you're moving. Oh my God, my knee, my ankle, my thigh.
This was a surreal collision that never happened, and any other person in the world, I think it would have been like I would have come away from it black and blue. Dumb things sports writers do. Alex Ovechkin spared my life.
The one thing about Gretzky, the few years that I was at the Garden when I had covering the team and everything else, especially at the end when he was with the Rangers and all that stuff. I mean, I'm like a foot taller than him. It's just when you see him in the locker room, and
we talking about?
Occupy. It's just, I was always amazed, even at the end, with his height and weight, how he was able to do what he did. And he had afterburners, but you wouldn't think he'd have afterburners if you just saw him, occasionally here and there. But man, what was it in your mind? What made him so great, despite the lack of size and strength? But he had strength, I guess, in ways that a lot of people.
We still talking about? We talking about Gretzky?
With Gretzky, because of his height and weight and everything. I mean, you stand next to him in a locker room, and he's not a big guy at all.
Gretzky was way ahead of his time in several ways. And one way that doesn't get discussed very often is he used a very long hockey stick, and most people could never control the puck well with a hockey stick as long as the one that he used. And it added height. It added length to him because he could control the puck. He could shoot and made his shot harder. But if you put a long hockey stick into most people or a long tennis racket, yeah, sure, if you can hit the ball off the tee, you're going to hit it harder because you have a bigger weapon to do it with. But trying to coordinate that, you might remember the weird sticks that Craig Gianni and Adam Oates used to use. Craig Gianni used an extremely short hockey stick. And
what about Krushelnyski back in the day? I know Fred.
Yeah, he was he was like Bobby Smith as a winger. Yeah.
Long reach. I mean,
right.
Fred Cusick just loved to say long reach every time Krushelnyski.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and it's funny, during an age where Rick Middleton was hitting his prime, Barry Peterson was a sensational rookie.
Yep.
Ray Bourque was already had been Rookie of the Year. and was a contender for the Norris Trophy. And with the team that they had, Mike Krushelnicki's number 25 was the hottest selling jersey in the Bruins pro shop in that era.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I know, who knows why, but Crush crushed it.
Long reach.
Yeah, it must be the long reach he had, right to the marketing department. But in any case, so Gretz, my favorite Gretzky story is early in the Oilers Flames 1988 playoff series. The Oilers were getting near the end of their dynasty years, but Gretz is still on the team.
The Steve Smith year.
Yeah, that was 2 years earlier, where the defenseman Steve Smith shot a clearing pass off the back of Grant Fuhrer's leg and into his own net, and it made the difference in the Calgary series.
I went crazy.
And the Flames wound up making the final, losing to Montreal. So anyway, Gretzky, he's at Calgary. The Oilers are frustrating the crap out of the Flames after the Flames finished first overall and thought we finally have the Oilers and where we want them. And the Oilers didn't have Coffey anymore. They had moved on from him. So they were playing a slightly different game. And Gretzky suddenly is got the puck, and the Oilers the Flames are already all pissed off. They're at home, and they're a huge hockey team. Big hockey team like the late 70s Montreal Canadiens. And Gretzky's got the puck on the boards, and he's in that position where there's like three velociraptors. There's a Calgary Flame in front of him. There's one to the right, and there's one to the left, and he's got the puck. Now, what does any NHL player do in a case like that? You dump the puck, and then you go like this, and you say you start praying for that these guys won't beat you up too bad. Well, don't you know what Gretzky does? He skates with the puck straight at the middle guy. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of like, what the hell? And what's he doing? And so he froze them all in position, and he instantly dropped the puck back to where he had been, which was along the boards near the blue line, for a streaking Glenn Anderson, who's motoring down the ice like few people could in his day. And he went in on net. And I think his shot went off the bar or something and out of play. But
phenomenal.
I'm telling you, if he had scored that goal, that would have been one of the greatest highlight reels of Gretzky's career. But it's a forgotten play because Anderson didn't score. He came awfully close, but he didn't score. But I was thinking at that moment, I became a Gretzky fan. I'd been watching him for many years. I'm thinking, like, this guy just drives me nuts. He just piles up points, and I'm not sure how he's doing it. I know about the hook back move. Other NHLers did that before Gretzky, looking for the trailer and all that. They did that just like there was rock and roll before the Beatles. But he took it to a stratospheric level and changed the way everybody plays because of how good he was at it and how often he did it and how many times he just reinvented the game of hockey every time up the ice. He played with such an open mind. And then because that long stick, he could come down the wing and just beat the goalie, and it'd be so surprising. I didn't think we were going to shoot the puck like that. What just happened? So Gretzky's just a fabulous athlete, great hockey player, and I'm going to use that as a segue just to say a very happy 77th birthday to the best hockey player I've ever seen, and that's Bobby Orr.
Agreed. One of the great guys, too. Real quick before we get to the Bruins, the other stuff, because back in the day, there's no NHL network or packages or anything like that. So you occasionally in New England get to see him on USA, occasionally. But I remember the first time, a lot of people may not realize this, but Randy Gregg was a forward on the team, right? But Dr. Randy Gregg.
Dr. Randy Gregg was a big defenseman.
But somebody would get hurt, and you probably know more than I do about this. All I remember is he would go to the bench, grab a medical bag, and go back out to the player that was hurt. And I was like, who is it? Then it's like Dr. Randy Gregg. And when I knew he was doctor, but I was always thinking like, teacher doctor. I didn't know he was a doctor.
You didn't know he was a MD, not a PhD.
Somebody went down, and it might have been Messier. He goes and gets the bag, a little black doctor's bag, and skates to him. I'm like, what's he doing?
But they were amazingly versatile, that team. It's funny. I'll tell you another Oilers Flame story. This is much shorter. So Dan Quinn got concussed, and he was in the trainer's room. And the trainer ran back out to the bench and told the coach, hey, he's awake, but he doesn't know who he is. And the coach says, tell him he's Wayne Gretzky. That was concussion protocol in the 80s.
Oh my God. Too funny.
You got your bell rung. Get back out there.
Last few minutes here with Mick Calagio, and Mick from Boston Hockey Now, or before that, but rinkwrapmc.com, and you hear him on with Joe Haggerty, Pucks with Hags podcast. You guys had a really good discussion. I heard some of it either yesterday or the day before in your podcast, and it's time to play the kids, isn't it? It's time to play the kids, right?
Well, that's what they just did right after. Yeah. Joe said this on the podcast. Credit to him. He was like saying, no, it's time to. You got to get a look at Lysell. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to find out if this guy can play in the NHL, even though he's not wowing anybody in the American Hockey League. And then the next day they recalled him, or later that day, whatever it was after we recorded. They recalled him, and they brought back up Michael Callahan, who is an NHL level defenseman, who is a long development track for him through Providence College, but he's got the game. So they're taking those guys on the road. So I guess we're going to see Lysell when the Bruins play at Vegas later this evening.
That'll be ugly, I think. Ugly.
I don't know what to expect anymore, but it doesn't matter. The one thing that matters is that, the Bruins fans, if they were anything like the New York fans, they would have been yelling, let's go whoever the opponent is, instead of let's go Bruins. But a lot of these people, they paid a lot of money for their tickets and they bought them for Christmas presents. And now they're going during garbage time when they thought they were going to see great matchups on the eve of the playoffs. Instead, they're seeing what looks like an exhibition game lineup. And, and this is just the landing pattern that the Bruins have decided on, but they think they're going to compete next year. And the reason Don Sweeney embraced the market and sold off pieces like Charlie Coyle to the Avalanche and Brandon Carlo to Toronto, who played against each other last night, because he thought that he could have his cake and eat it too. So he got draft capital, he got prospects. Minton from Toronto, he's with Providence right now. Everybody thinks he's an NHL player. But he also was able to bring in Yoki Haru, who has really helped Nikita Zadorov. And he's UFA, so they need to sign Yoki Haru. They need to offer him something that will compel him to stay away from the market, because everybody saw him play 4 Nations for Finland.
Okay, you just mentioned Nicky Zadorov, and I just saw him bust a stick over somebody's head in the Bruins during practice. What is that all about?
That was actually a dummy.
Oh, it is?
Like a tackling dummy on a hockey rink.
It's only about an 8-second clip of it. And I'm going, what is that?
I think they wanted a tackling dummy kind of player to screen the goalie without risking somebody getting injured. So that's like an innovative kind of little tactic there. So he decided to incur a suspension for himself there. So he just went Dale Hunter on the guy.
You still look in the West. Winnipeg is still on top by a good margin, by 9 points over Dallas. Is it possible for the first time, and God only knows when, not only a Canadian team could win the Stanley Cup, but could we have 2 Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup Finals?
Well, let it be Toronto if that's the case. They're the Boston Red Sox. They're the pre-2004 Boston Red Sox of hockey. Being a fan up there, that is what it's like. If you're old enough to remember Red Sox baseball before 2004, or before Ortiz hit that home run on what would have been strike 3 in the ALCS in a sweep for the Yankees, then you know what the Toronto Maple Leaf Nation is all about. And you know what? If they did it, I know Bruins fans love to crap all over them and say it's the Maple Leafs that are going to lose. And then they may be right again. But I just feel like I'm not saying it's their time as opposed to anybody else's, but they're in there. This could be their year.
And people don't realize in the East, it's either Toronto or Montreal for Canadian teams. There aren't any other ones.
No, there aren't. And it's amazing how the Bruins and the Canadians see so little of each other and then the same stupid division.
I should say
I mean-
Ottawa. Ottawa's there. Ottawa's there too. 3.
Yeah, I guess we should call the capital of the country a Canadian team.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
good one on your part. Thanks for the good catch there. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, that could be Kachuk versus Kachuk if matchups work out.
Kachuk on Kachuk, and throw in Marchand for good measure.
By a vowel. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. As I haven't. Has he started to play yet for them?
No. I think that Florida's taken their time on this. They want to make sure that they get it right. And I suspect that Marchand was brought in when they went after him, not knowing if Kachuk was even going to play, I think, and thought, what can we do? What's the closest thing we could get? And they probably, hey, look at Marchand. Is he playing well? And they looked at it and they see him competing his ass off. And they decided, look, is he everything he was 5 years ago? Obviously not. Injuries, surgeries, age, mileage. But I'll tell you, that guy's ticker never stops.
No.
And he will find a way.
He can put you over the top.
He could put, I love how they're thinking. I always thought the Bruins missed their window in 2012 by not upgrading with an offensive defenseman, because that was the missing piece of their team. David Krejci and Patrice Bergeron for 2/3 of every game was their offensive defenseman. Those are the guys who sacrificed stat sheets to help the breakout, come all the way back and move the puck out. And as a result, the Bruins were able to win without an offensive defenseman, and almost nobody ever does.
Mick, you're the best. Anything you want to plug coming up or anything? Always great talking to you.
I appear on the Pete Sheppard Show.
I'll retweet it for you.
If you pick up the hockey news and you ever see the Money Power issue or the yearbook or the Future Watch, which is the prospects issue, which has recently come out, then you look up the Bruins article. I don't make the prospect list. That's determined between the hockey news and NHL scouts. And then what my job is to talk to the Bruins people and flesh out the information about their guys. That list will change dramatically next year with all the shuffling that the Bruins just did.
Well, I'm going to have you and Hags on at the same time. Maybe next week we can try and do that. When you're not.
Yeah, that would be fun, but I might not get a word in edgewise.
No, I'll make sure. I'll be a good moderator, I promise. All right, my man. Thank you so much. All the best. Continued success. Stay warm.
Thanks, Pete.
All righty. There it is, Mick Colaggio joining me here on the Pete Sheppard Show. Quick break, and then Mia O'Brien from up north, Florida-wise, that is, from 1010XL. We'll talk NFL and NCAA hoops. March Madness, in case you don't know, begins today. All part of the Pete Sheppard Show here. Final segment coming up with Mia O'Brien on the Coastal Sports Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey everybody, it's Pete Sheppard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them, sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together by having the courage to start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding.
Whoa!
Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back.
Woohoo! Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie.
So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
You want the best in sports and entertainment? You got it. Now back to the Pete Sheppard Show.
Welcome back. Final segment of the Pete Sheppard Show here on the Coastal Sports Network. I know Mia O'Brien is finishing up her podcast, expected to join me at any second now. She will be popping in, there's no question about it, up at 1010XL, where she covers the Florida Gators, and they are one of the heavy favorites to win the whole thing. Or if they're not, they should be. I thought I saw a thing on ESPN flash across this morning. They were only 7%, which is ridiculous. I have them winning the entire thing. But we'll get Mia's thoughts on not only what her bracket is, see her Final Four, the Florida Gators as a whole, who she has winning, and we'll get into the Jaguars and some other NFL news as well here on the Pete Sheppard Show. Thanks, everybody, for checking us out. And follow me on Twitter X at PShep326, on CSN Florida, Rumble, Kick, LinkedIn, of course, YouTube. Call or text the show, 727-858-6650. And you can follow also on the app, SR1029, the game, SR1029thegame.com. You want to absolutely check that out. And while we're waiting for Mia, March Madness, as you know, begins today. Gonzaga, they're one of my sleeper teams. I got them going all the way to the regional final before losing. Jay Billis tweeted out an interesting stat. Gonzaga's reached 9 straight Sweet 16s, including 2 title games. The only team in the nation to do that. Gonzaga is only the 4th team in college hoop history to reach 9 straight, joining UCLA, North Carolina, and Duke. Gonzaga always fieldless competitors. Most of you know that. You may beat them, but you have to kill them. Yeah, they are very, very, very tough to beat. And that's why I have them winning not only the 8-9 matchup over Georgia, but moving on and upsetting Houston, the number 1 seed. I think they will beat them, and I think they will beat Clemson before they will move on and lose in the regional final to, I have them losing to Tennessee in the regional final. I so did not want to pick Tennessee for a variety of reasons, but I did it anyway. As I said, I hope that I am not going to be, I'm not going to regret it. I'm going to sweat out the Wofford game tonight. They're 19-point favorites tonight in the 2-15 seed. So we shall see. I'm just going to send me a quick text just to see if she's able. I know sometimes it can be difficult. She has podcast. And she does a bunch of shows where I don't consider her up and coming. She is there she is, just like that, she pops in. I was going to say Mia O'Brien is not, anybody who doesn't know Mia is not up and coming. Mia has arrived, and I'm still, you should be on ESPN, or you should be on the Mia O'Brien network. That's how much I think of this young lady. I think she's terrific. Your clarity of thought, the way you analyze things, you're fun. It's one of my favorite interviews that I get to do every week or every couple of weeks when our schedules, agree with each other. But Mia O'Brien, 1010XL, thank you so much, my dear. Thanks for joining me. I have the Gators winning the whole thing, plain and simple. Don't even have to play the games. Just punch in Florida. How you doing?
I'm much more nervous than you are when it comes to Florida, and I am perhaps the biggest Florida hater. And I don't hate on Florida intentionally. I do it just to get a rile out of my co-hosts on 1010XL because so many of them are Gator grads. Pete, good to be with you as always. I appreciate the kind words. I have the Gators in my office pool. Yes, I am one of those people who has filed 3 brackets. Also, I have my my people cutting my lawn behind me, so hopefully you can't hear them.
No, it happens in my place too. No, you're fine. Can't hear.
Shout out to Robbie and the crew. But yeah, no, I have the Gators in one pool. I've gone on the record. I've asked nearly every national analyst we've had on Helmets and Heels the last week and a half. Where's the flaw? There's got to be a flaw in the plan here. We had Seth Greenberg of ESPN on yesterday, and he said, no, Florida is the hottest team in the country. They're the most complete team. They are the deepest team. They have what it takes in March. The only stat that I keep coming back to, Pete, is that the last, I believe it's 32 national champions, every single one of them, minus Kevin Ollie in 2014, had a Sweet 16 appearance under their belt before winning the national championship. And so that is the only stat that I look at, and I have pause when it comes to Todd Golden's Gators.
Tell me your Final Four real quick.
I have. Let me pull it up.
I appreciate you only did 3. I only do 1 all year. There are people who do 50. But whatever your main Final Four, your main one is, tell me your Final Four real quick.
Okay, so this was the first bracket I filled out. This is the family pool. So in the family pool, my Final Four, and again, I have Florida winning it all in the office pool, but in the bracket, that was the first one that I filled out. So this is based off gut instinct. My Final Four is Michigan State. They make an appearance in, I believe, all 3 of the brackets that I did. Texas Tech, Duke, and Tennessee.
Okay, so I do this every year with the Vols, and I do it because I cover the prize.
Oh, don't worry. My boyfriend Kevin said to me, he's like, "What are you doing picking Rick Barnes?" And I said, "I'm only doing it because Chaz Lanier. I'm doing it for Chaz. Otherwise, trust me, I want Matthew Driscoll to have something to claim, and so that's the only reason I feel like I'm picking the Vols."
I always have them knocked out in the first or second round. I very rarely. I know they've gone to the Elite Sweet 16 a couple times, but nevertheless, I've seen it in Providence. With 4 number ones on the team, by the way, and lost the first round in Alabama. I've seen it in Clemson, Texas, Tennessee. 30-28. 11 of those losses out of the 28, as you know, knocked out in the first round. Why do I get the feeling tonight? Forget the 19-point spread. Why am I going to be doing poopy pants at about 9-10 this evening as that game is within 5 points either way, going, oh my God, Watford, who should, had to win their way into the tournament. They never. But this is the type of game. This is what happens, and I'm gonna punch myself if they get knocked out in the first or second round. I have them in the Final Four as well, but I'm going to text you around 7:10. I'm going to say, see, I knew it.
Because the power of Mike Young compels. That's why. That's why. It's everlasting, even if it's not necessarily working out to exact perfection in Blacksburg right now. No, I mean, that's an interesting 15-2 game. I know a lot of folks have questions about Alabama in terms of Grant Nelson's health, in terms of where that team is mentally. I am not one of those people. I do have Alabama in the Final Four in a different in the office pool or no, not in that one. Yeah. I have it in the 10-10 XL bracket challenge in the Chubby Madness bracket.
How much to get in your family bracket? How much did that cost?
Free. That one's free. The bracket challenge that we're running at 10-10 XL with Mr. Chubby's Wings, that one is free as well, but the office pool one is $10. And so in that bracket, which I realized I probably should have taken a picture of before I submitted it, because that's the hard copy bracket. That one I have Florida and Duke in the final, but I believe in Alabama. I will tell you this, like I sat down on Sunday night when the bracket was, before the bracket was revealed, my dad was in town. And so the three of us were sitting on the couch and we agreed there were 3 teams that we trusted because of the depth and because of the experience in the NCAA tournament, even if a small sample size. And those 3 teams were the University of Florida, Duke, and Alabama. And I say that, and of course you're like, well, Duke's headliner are three freshmen. But ultimately, I go back to that 2015 Duke National Championship team with Jahlil Okafor and Tyus Jones. Those were the headliners. But then when you see guys like Quinn Cook on that roster, who were actually the glue guys that really were leading that team to the national title, I see a similar Duke. I see a very similar Duke team. And so knowing the depth, and I think it was on full display in the ACC tournament, not only because of Cooper Flagg's injury, but because, let's be real, teams are going to go at Malawach. Like, they are going to try to foul him out. And the fact that Duke displayed they have other guys they can bring in off the bench in the front court, that is all I need to see to say, hey, it's not just Florida that can keep bringing guys in off the bench in that front court. Alabama, I think the big critique is going to be about how they operate in a half-court set if someone's to try to muck it up, because they do want to just get out in transition. And, of course, if Nelson's not healthy. But I've seen Cliff, I'm going to butcher his last name, Amari Ari, the center for Alabama, who they got in the portal from Rutgers. I've been watching him for years now, from when he was in high school in New Jersey. And so I believe in the fact that they have other pieces in the front court that we're not talking about. And Mark Sears kind of has that Joe Burrow in him, that when it's crunch time, he's one of those people I'm not going to bet against. But those are the 3 teams, and it's unfortunate because 2 of them are in the same region, that I said those are 3 teams that I think could make a run. Auburn, of course, is still lurking, but at the same time, like, I have questions of if they've gotten found out over the last 3 weeks, or if it was quite simply they lost to 2 of the other top 8 teams in the tournament.
No, I'm with you. I have Auburn in my Final Four as well, but I'm a big Bruce Pearl guy. Not because of his ties to Boston. By the way, the Eagles never should have let him go ever. But something about academic standards. I care about that. I care about winning. If they want to graduate, they can graduate. But that's another discussion for another time. But I do have them in my Final Four. And you're right, they've lost 3 of the last 4, but some very good teams.
Which no national champion has ever won the whole thing after losing 3 of their last 4 coming into the tournament. And so kind of a vote against the history books if you do pick Auburn to cut down the nets, which there's a lot of people who are. There's a lot of people who say they were the best team all year. They have a record number of quad 1 wins, and that is going to trump recency bias.
Yeah, I have Florida beating Duke in the final, which I'm sure a lot of people do.
That's what I have in the office pool too.
Yeah, so. I'm sure. The Tennessee one, I'm scared to death every game, like I am. And this is the first time I picked them to go past the Sweet 16. I got them in the Final Four. But the fact that you have them in the Final Four too, I feel a little more confident. You know what? My little, if there's a sleeper team that I have, and it's odd to say this about this team, is Gonzaga. I think they're going to beat an overrated Georgia team. I also have them upsetting Houston.
I do too.
I have them upsetting Houston. Then I have them beating Clemson before moving on and losing to Tennessee. But this is one of the few times, Mark Few, no one's, and I saw the last 2 conference games that they played, including the championship. They didn't win the regular season, but they won the conference. But you can never count him out. It's like Tom Izzo, Danny Hurley as well. You cannot count out Mark Few. I think this could be a wonderful, where no one's expecting Gonzaga, to get to the Final Four this year, and maybe they get a chance to get to at least a regional final. What do you think?
They've been to 9 straight Sweet 16. So yeah, I'm not going to bet against Mark Few. I have them in the Sweet 16 as well. I do have them losing to Purdue. We do have some Houston fans here in the Northeast Florida area, in our listening area, and they've not been very happy with me throughout the course of the season because they feel like I never give Houston respect, whether that's in my AP ballot or on the air. But ultimately for me, I think that Gonzaga, yes, while they've been a metrics darling and they've consistently been in the top 10 of Bart Torvik and Ken Pom over the last month or so, and people are saying, how is this happening? They didn't even win their conference regular season championship. I think that this is a team that largely underperformed and has clawed its way back, and they have figured out a thing or two about themselves. And those are the teams you have to be most afraid of in the tournament, because they can beat you in a variety of ways.
There's before we get
veteran point guard as well. The younger Nembhard, and that's obviously an X factor in the tournament too.
No question. That's always a great point. X factor, and teams that have. That's why the mid majors can do some damage. We have guys playing together 3-4 years. And that really can even up the playing field. But me being from Rhode Island originally, in Massachusetts, spent most of my life, but being the Providence College guy that I am. So Bryce Hopkins, talk about the circle of life. So everybody in Rhode Island is pissed at him right now, or some BC fans are livid. He said he's going to enter the transfer portal, might go to either St. John's or Georgetown, 2 of his final. But the other thing is, people don't realize, probably going to be in the second round, Calipari and Pitino going at it with in Providence with St. John's and Arkansas. Providence gets Hopkins from Kentucky when Calipari was coaching Kentucky, and now he's going to either leave for St. John's, and I still think Calipari might try to Jaya mind trick too to Arkansas. But the whole circle of life thing and everything going down in Providence, I think that is going to be fascinating to watch. And Pitino and Calipari do not like each other at all. It's been that way for a long time. Worse than when Pitino and Calhoun went at it, which at least Rick addressed that yesterday. But he and Cal, they'll say all the right things probably and with a little smirk on their faces. But the circle of life thing with Bryce Hopkins, who had the potential to be one of the best players in the country. He only played in 4 games, 15 months for the Friars. That's what sucks. But I do think it's an interesting little side thing going on for the tournament. Not just saying it because it involves my Friars, but Pitino, still have a soft spot in my heart for him, as do a lot of people. In St. John's, if St. John's, Florida, that could be, I think it'll be the regional final, right? That's going to be a hell of a matchup.
Yes. And I think that the fact that St. John's came out of nowhere, so to speak, to claim their first Big East title since 2000. I mean, they have 5 NCAA tournament wins since 1982 or something like that. For me, it's an amazing story. I voted Rick Pitino National Coach of the Year on my AP ballot. I was just listening to the boys at The Ringer before I had my podcast, and then I hopped on with you guys, and they're a little more skeptical of these teams that seemingly come out of nowhere to win their conference championship and then earn a high seed in the NCAA tournament. I also think there's another name that you didn't mention there, and Bill Self, who, much like Tom Izzo, who I think is upset that he's not going to be part of this reunion in Providence this weekend. Although I think he's going to go to the Final Four, and he told us that he would die before he did, if he had to try to get to another Final Four, and I think he's going to. I don't think he's going to die though, because he's going to make it. But at the same time, I think Bill Self is another guy who was so outspoken after last year's NCAA tournament about the shortcomings of his scouting acumen in the portal. The fact that 3 of the guys that he pulled in the portal really didn't do anything in 2024, and the others, well, it essentially resulted in a 5-man, 6-man rotation, and he didn't have the depth, to the point that this offseason, he literally had Riley Kugel transfer from Florida, get to Lawrence, Kansas, and then say, sorry, I don't have enough scholarships, you'd have to gray shirt. And he turned around and went down to Mississippi State. Point being, I think Bill Self is the name that no one's talking about. And I do think that Kansas, if they get past Calipari and Arkansas, who obviously have had the most mercurial season of anybody this year, I do think that they could be a tougher out than many people are giving them credit for, because KJ Adams, Hunter Dickinson and company have played together for 2 years. Hunter Dickinson has seemingly been in college forever. And Bill Self, again, another name that you can't count out, but it's certainly going to be an interesting regional pod, just because of the name recognition, but also I think name recognition of the players as well.
Next time I see Officer and a Gentleman, I'm going to switch to the NFL. I'm going to put Aaron Rodgers' face in Richard Gere. I got nowhere else to go. Look, I've been saying it for 3 or 4 weeks. I don't think anybody wants him. We'll get into the Jaguars in a second, but I wanted your thoughts. This guy thinks he was holding the NFL hostage, and maybe some of that is true, but more and more, as I've been screaming to anybody who will listen to me, I don't think anybody wants him. I don't think anybody wants them. I think they're tired of it. They don't want the baggage that goes with it. I never thought for a second the Vikings were in play for him or even remotely wanted him. I really didn't. And now you're stuck between sort of several options a few weeks ago, maybe down to 2 with Pittsburgh and the Giants. And I don't think Pittsburgh wants him. I just said people are tired of the shenanigans, and retirement for him, Mia, don't you think it's got to be on the table here? It's got to be at least an option.
I think it's on the table, but I also think he's now recognizing how much leverage he has. I mean, let's be real. How many veterans have we seen over the last few years? I mean, once upon a time, Gronk didn't sign with the Buccaneers until October. And so I think that we're going to continue to see this trend of players who don't sign with the team until after the offseason program, and even more who don't sign until after training camp has come to a conclusion, because they're waiting for an opportunity where a team has to overpay them because they are so desperate for help. And so that's where I think that, you're going to see a scenario where either a quarterback goes down somewhere, or JJ McCarthy doesn't live up to expectations in the offseason program and the Vikings have questions. The Steelers recognize that it's way worse than they thought it was with insert name of rookie quarterback that they draft and in Mason Rudolph. And you'll see Aaron Rodgers resurface at some point this summer. That's my expectation. I don't think he's done for better or worse. I think he should be hanging it up, just because I think he has, as kooky as he is, I think he's got plenty of other career avenues that he could go down, and he's just hanging on. And Tom Brady is living proof of, you'd rather get out while you're still ahead as opposed to hanging around a little too long and compromising other avenues of your life.
For people like us, I want Rodgers to go to the Steelers only to watch Mike Tomlin punch him out at some point during the season, or just say,
DK will first.
No, yeah, I agree. I can't see him working under Mike Tomlin. I cannot see it. And you can't tell me Mike Tomlin on the record wants that guy there. Now, they're also stuck between a rock and a hard place. Who's going to be their quarterback? I mean, they obviously don't want Russell Wilson. That's obvious. I don't think they want Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what they're going to do.
I mean, hope Shador falls, and hope they like Shador. And I mean, they're picking at what, 21, 20? Yeah. So if most teams have a second round grade on him, but also knowing that the report is a lot of teams only have somewhere between 10 to 15 players in this year's class with a first round grade, there's going to be 15 or 10 to 15 teams that have to settle for players with second round grades solely because there's not enough players to go around. And I mean, that if you're the Steelers, that's probably your best bet. They wined and dined Jalen Milroe this week. I think that would be an interesting Justin Fields replacement, where you're giving him time to develop, but you're coming up with packages for him. And they roll with that and say the rest of the ecosystem is built. We'll figure out the quarterback position and kick the can down the road even further.
Finally, with the Jaguars, and I know he just got his license and he's now old enough to drink. But James Gladstone's, pretty impactful stuff that he's doing. What's the buzz around your team up there, and what the job that he has done thus far?
Yeah, I mean, look. Nationally, yes, the conversation is going to continue to be that he looks like he's 12.
And I'm just goofing around because it's who cares? You can't
right. And honestly, it's been so fascinating for me, because when you speak with people around the Los Angeles Rams organization, they get not upset, but they're just like, why are people still talking about this? Sean McVay was hired a decade ago at 30 years old. I thought we were past this. As far as James's acumen, I think it's undeniable. I will tell you on an anecdotal personal level, and I was speaking with, somebody around the league about this yesterday, the fact that we are past the cloak and dagger world is very unfamiliar to many in Jacksonville. The fact that James Gladstone came down off the podium after his free agency availability on Thursday and wanted to actually just talk with us reporters and like shoot the crap, like that is so foreign to so many at the Miller Electric Center and Everbank Stadium that I think there's going to be an adjustment. That coupled with, again, anecdotally, when Liam Cohen spoke with us one-on-one after he was introduced as the Jaguars head coach, he like bro hugged every single media member and wanted to like get our whole life story right then and there. And it's genuine from both of those gentlemen. They're not faking it. It's not lip service. And I think that it's a reminder of, while Doug Peterson was always approachable, he always kept an arm's distance. And I've heard that from more than one person. He was never going to be fully open with you. And that's okay. I think that's just from years of scar tissue of living in Philadelphia and working in Philadelphia and also being in the National Football League. But these two they're different. And as someone who wears her heart on her sleeve, I'm very excited for it. But there will be, and there will continue to be, skeptics around the league. And that's okay.
9 players signed last week, 5 projected starters. I mean, looking like things are around the up and up, but hopefully there will be. But so you don't have the Aaron Rodgers drama. Don't you wish you did?
No, not in the least.
Oh, last thing. You going to the, you coming down to West Palm for the owners' meetings next week?
I am not as of this writing. I guess I have 24 hours to figure out if I am. It doesn't sound like I am. I know. I know that'll be what. So I would have to go down Sunday night. We're still figuring that one out, but it doesn't sound like I will be. But that's not the end of the world because we've had family visiting, I think, every weekend since I got back from the combine and even the weekend before that. So I'm okay with like chilling for a little bit.
Well, if you go, might see you there. Angel might be there as well. So, Mia, thanks so much. What do you got coming up? What do you got coming up besides your show, Helmets and Heels? What else? Are you broadcasting any of the women's games by chance or anything like that?
Yep. I have, well, of course, the Women's Basketball Podcast is my podcast that you can find all things women's basketball. Get your tournament bracket challenge entries in because we are running a pool. And also, if you just want a primer on how you should be selecting teams in this year's NCAA tournament field on the women's side, be sure to flip on over my social channels. I have the link there. Calling a little JU Women's Lacrosse, their ASUN home opener on Saturday. And then just lacrosse this Saturday. And aside from that, just watching and taking in all things madness and Helmets and Heels. And then Thursday mornings on Duval Rundown.
Mia, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Love your insight into everything and just a fun person. All right. All the best. We'll talk soon. Thank you, my dear.
Adios, amigos.
All right. Take care. All right. That's going to do it for the Pete Sheppard Show here on this Thursday. Yes, because I have to go out, get some exercise a little bit, and get ready for March Madness so I can plonk whatever's left of my butt down on my recliner to watch March Madness from 12:10 up until probably 12:10 this evening, or close to it. Anyway, have a great and safe rest of your Thursday, everybody. Thanks to me, O'Brien. Thanks to Mick Colagio. Thanks to Bill Sparrows. Thanks to Trevor Harris as well. We'll have a full show for you tomorrow. Also, Joey B., thank you for all the kind words. You have a great day also. And back tomorrow at 7 a.m. We'll see if Tennessee can hang on and see how many brackets busters happen tonight. I guarantee you people will be crying tomorrow morning about something. And we'll break it all down for you. Back tomorrow at 7 a.m. I am Pete. See you. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
I'm Big Bang. I am the chief. I got a lot of rap, but I'll be brief. I never need a horse. I like the chill. So I drive up in my new Seville. My tribe went down in the Hall of Fame, cause I'm the one who shot Jesse James. Pound for pound, I will never break down.